2 years after the success of The Mummy, Stephen Sommers was given the task to make a sequel. And boy, is it a movie that is remembered mostly for one scene. But can we convince you to check this movie out? Is it worth watching again? That's today we are talking about 2001's The Mummy Returns. Let's go.
Your host, Parker, Dan, and Angela slice and dice their way through the good.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
The bad.
You brought the devil!
There's a devil inside everyone.
And the ugly movies you love.
And you can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it!
Hold your favorite films and franchises tight, because they aren't safe. In fact, it's already too late. It's time to dissect that film.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dissect That Film podcast, a podcast that dissects the good, the bad, and the ugly of cinema. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, my wonderful co-host, Dan and Angela from DNA Gaming.
Hello.
And back once again from the wet parts of South America, fighting them anacondas. He finally escaped. We have back on the show, Sean from Movie Dumpster. What's going on, Sean?
I'm back. Yes, I escaped. I got away from John Boyd, the disgusting blob that came out of the snake at the end of that film, which, if you guys don't remember, listeners don't remember, Brett's referencing, obviously, the episode. Me and my co-host, Joe Lascola, who could not make it tonight, had an emergency, a last-minute emergency, but he's doing okay to my knowledge, but he's in our thoughts. Yes. With that said, though, he's back with the anaconda. I escaped, and we did that episode with you guys a couple years back now on Anaconda, I guess is where I'm going with that. Yeah. Funnily enough, an actor from the first Mummy film was in Anaconda.
Yes.
The dad from Jumanji.
Jonathan Hyde.
Yes. Just didn't know if you were going to mention that. Just thought that was a funny connection.
Yeah, well, we did The Mummy last week, so we mentioned that in a very, we have a, yes, if you want to check out our Mummy episode, The Mummy from 1999, it's a long one, but it's a good one.
I was actually going to ask you about that before you move on. Are you guys going to just also do the Scorpion King, or are you just moving on to the third one?
So we are doing the third one. We're doing the 2017 Mummy with Tom Cruise, and then we're going to save what we're doing at the end of the month because that is our Patreon pick. But it's between three other Mummy movies that have come out over the many years.
Okay, because that was the one I thought about watching 3, and I was like, oh, it's such a departure. I'll come back to that later. I'm sure Dissect That Film's going to cover it, but the Scorpion King might be interesting because it's at least somewhat involved with this film. Just curious.
I think I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Scorpion King, not to a huge degree, because at some point we're probably gonna cover it. That I'm actually bummed because I'm thinking about it. I'm like, man, that should have been my pick for the Patreon. Was the Scorpion King? That would have been
the adjacent.
I didn't think of it though. But yeah, we're gonna miss Joe. Joe's fighting anacondas on an island where he got stuck in a time loop.
Him and Ice Cube and Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, they're still stuck down there. And the guy with the mosquito in the neck.
Hopefully he doesn't get attacked by some guy out of a movie screen from like Bloody New Year.
Oh God!
It makes me think of the time loop thing. We were talking about it earlier. It made me think of the episode of The Simpsons. Homer goes to bat, where all the baseball players come in, and Ozzie Smith goes to the Springfield's mystery spot and falls in that hole, and it just perpetually falls forever.
Classic episode.
Oh, I love it. It's so good.
They have a song at the end. We could go into it all day there, Dan.
Yep. Shave your damn sideburns.
Oh man, I mean, if you've been listening to this show for even the last month, we talk about Movie Dumpster all the time. We're huge fans of Movie Dumpster. We've had you guys on a couple times. We're big supporters of your show. But for anyone who may be new to the show who hasn't heard us talking about you guys, can you please explain what Movie Dumpster is all about?
Yeah, so Movie Dumpster, much like this show, it is a movie review show. Kind of see it in the name there, but the Movie Dumpster is where all the films that are forgotten have been thrown. So we cover a lot of films, like a lot of horror films, actually, but those forgotten gems, those B movies that not most folks are talking about. We recently just did an episode on Dog Soldiers. But we also have done stuff on like Munchie's one I always go back to. Have you ever heard of Munchie?
We've heard of Jim Wynorski.
Oh, right, the director of Munchie. You guys know, but stuff in that vein. A lot of full moon stuff, a lot of 80s slashers and puppet movies like Ghoulies 3 and Demonic Toys. Howard the Duck's one we've covered. We've actually got a couple series in our show. If it interests you, we also do a show where we cover every single episode of the old George Romero anthology series, Tales from the Dark Side. And our show is lovingly called Talks from the Dark Side. So we also have that on our channel. And we have another show that we're bringing back called Book to the Movie, where we bring our friend Chris Smith, CB Smith, who has his own YouTube channel where he kind of goes through a book and a movie and compares it. And we kind of took that idea and put our own little spin on it on our show. We have a couple new episodes of that coming soon. And I guess I'll give you guys a little teaser. The patrons already know over on Movie Dumpster's Patreon. You can check that out, patreon.com/Movie Dumpster. Don't forget my plugs here. But we're doing an episode, the famous rat episode. If you're familiar with Movie Dumpster, we did this movie of unknown origin years ago, this Peter Weller movie where he battles a rat in his house. Recommend it. Don't love the film personally, but I've warmed up to it a little over the years. I know Joe's a huge fan, but we finally are doing the book to the movie on The Visitor is the name of the book. So that's the next thing we got coming. That'll be dropping around the same time I think this is, if not right before, right after. But that's what we got coming out. So if any of that interests you, check us out over on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, all of Movie Dumpster's links will be down below in the description. So make sure to check out Movie Dumpster. You will not be disappointed. There's so much amazing content that Movie Dumpster has put out the last, what are you guys on, year 7 now?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. We have, I guess, what is it? We did like 4 years were audio only. Yeah. And now we've been doing a video now going on this 3rd year. It's kind of crazy to think about. I never thought that would really happen. You guys now do a little bit of both. So it's kind of crazy to see where we've both kind of come just in a couple of years of knowing each other.
Hell yeah. It's been a ride, man. But we're so happy to have you here to talk about The Mummy Returns.
Oh, right.
Sean, what is your history with this movie?
I don't mean to immediately come off so negative. I don't mean that. We'll get to my thoughts. But, I mean, The Mummy is definitely one I grew up with. Both the original Boris Karloff film, because my dad was big into the Universal monsters. Actually, a film I kind of need to revisit, honestly. It's been a minute. But that I do remember growing up on. And then this BrendanFraser one came out in the 90s. And it kind of, I think, blew a lot of people away. Obviously, it made a lot of money, and hence the sequels that came later. But this was one that was easily on rotation. I don't remember if we actually saw this in theaters with 3 kids. It was kind of, my parents had to pick and choose. So I don't remember if this one was in the theaters or a rental, but definitely saw it right when it came out or within, a year of it coming out. And was always kind of a favorite of mine. I like how they kind of changed the story up, but plays all those homages to that old film. And then we got the second one, which is what we're going to talk about, which I know a lot of people were really excited about at the time. And, unfortunately, as we're going to talk about, maybe it didn't hit the mark in a lot of those places. Still think it's a fun ride. It's definitely still a blockbuster, but a lot more peaks and valleys in this film compared to that first reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it. Because I honestly don't think the first one's perfect by any stretch, but for a summer popcorn film, it's right up there with like Men in Black, guys. I mean, I still think Men in Black's better, but I think you know what I mean.
Right.
From that era.
And Dan, Angela,
go ahead.
Go. I went first last time.
Birthday boy goes first.
Yeah, birthday boy.
Oh, happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. At the time of the recording, it is technically my birthday. Anywho, so I have history with this. A little bit of one. God, what's this game? 01.
Yep.
Summer of 01.
Yeah,
so it would have been 15. Yeah, 15. I remember I was doing a project with a couple of my friends from school, and the movie had come out. And
in school?
No, right? You wouldn't think. But
I was there too, my friend. We're all getting a little old.
No, right? So we were going to go to this movie. So we all went to the movie, watched together. Great, good time, all this stuff. And then like 2 days later, like, hey, some ladies want to go to the movie. You want to go to the movie? So I went and seen the movie again. So that was my thing. It's 2 days. But I didn't finish the project, by the way. I was terrible at fucking school. I was like, the hell with
That's why I'm picking at him.
Yeah, I'm terrible at fucking school. So I literally went to see the movie with the bros, and then the next time like we were trying to woo ladies, which of course I didn't because I'm terrible at it. Anyway, and then that was it. That was The Mummy. I would love the first film. I talked about in the last one, and it was a no-brainer to go watch this one. So
you wooed me somehow.
I'm still trying to figure that one out. But go ahead. That's got nothing to do with the movie.
I'm pretty sure that I've watched this before. I don't remember when I watched it. I just remember one scene that I was like, okay.
Is it the scene?
It's probably
the one
the scene.
About.
Probably.
But I don't really have a history with it. So.
That's fair.
All right.
Yeah.
I mentioned it last week, but I'll mention it again. The fact that I played the shit out of the VHS tape of The Mummy. And then once The Mummy Returns came out on VHS, my grandma bought it immediately. To be honest, I don't remember if she took me to see this in theaters. Because I remember going to see Jurassic Park 3 in theaters, which came out the same year. I think it came out a little later.
Yeah, same. I think I had the similar experience there, Brett.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
But I don't remember if I had seen this one in theaters. But I do remember my grandma buying the VHS as soon as it came out, and I'd have to watch the first and this one back to back every single time I'd watch them. If I watched The Mummy, I'm like, gotta watch The Mummy Returns. And then when the third one came out, that was way later. I was in high school, so I was like, I saw it in theaters and went, I don't need to see that one for a while. I don't know if I've actually seen that one all the way through since. So that more on that next week. But yeah, I mean, I always had a blast with this movie. It definitely is it's a major departure from what they did in that first one. You know, the fact that the first one is very confined to one area where they're fighting, you know, Imhotep and all that. This is like you're in London, you're traveling across the desert to different parts of Egypt, and there's a lot of CGI, a lot more CGI in this one than in the first one. And we'll talk about kind of the pitfalls that ILM had with this one compared to the first one. But to be honest, I remember it fondly, and rewatching it, I still was like, you know what? It's got a lot of problems, but it's still a good time.
I will say one other thing. I actually kind of more fondly remember the Rock, the routine the Rock and Hurricane Helms had at the time. That is actually more burned in my memory because that's when I used to watch wrestling. That when this movie came out, there's this famous bit. I want to even say like Hulk Hogan or someone else even is involved. Might be Jericho. I'm forgetting the details, but there's this famous backstage bit where the Rock and Hurricane are going at it, and the Hurricane, who actually pinned the Rock on an episode of Raw at one point.
Okay.
If you know your wrestling history from the early 2000s. But anyway, the joke is that Hurricane says, "Oh, I could beat the Rock. BrendanFraser beat the Scorpion King," because the Rock was the first time he did the Hollywood Rock persona. I remember that a lot more than my first viewing of this film, which is kind of funny to me. I just wanted to mention that before I forgot to bring it up.
Yeah, this was when I around this time was when I was watching a decent amount of wrestling. I wasn't a huge fan of The Rock, but I was like, oh shit, I watched The Rock. Like, he's in a movie now? Yeah. All right. And then I remember seeing the movie, I'm like, he's not really in it. He's there.
It was a marketing ploy, and then they did the Scorpion King, and you know, that is what it is. But at least that was an actual movie starring The Rock.
Well, I know the F at the time, right? Because it was WWF back in the early 2000s. They funded all those Scorpion King movies.
Did they?
Yeah, they had a production company, so they were like, okay, we're gonna make a lot of money off of this. And they made like 10 sequels to that fucking movie.
I didn't realize they funded it. That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
I think there's in that Scorpion King series, I think there's been like 4 different wrestlers that have played the main character. Because I know Randy Couture was like in the last one. That one came out like 5 or 6 years ago. So it's been a while since we've gotten a
Sure, because I know they have like the Marine series they did that where it was like John Cena.
That's where John Cena came onto the scene there.
I remember wrestling back then. It was so good. Like we were playing the SmackDown versus Raw games. And did you? Because I just got to go slightly because this is what
I brought it up.
No. Did you, Sean? I don't know. Were you much for card games growing up?
I played Magic and Pokemon. I definitely played Pokemon wrong with my brothers. We didn't ever use the element cards, which is the whole fucking point. Or whatever they're called. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the energy cards.
Yeah, but Magic, I did play to the rules and had a lot of fun, and I've bought Magic cards on and off in my life, thrown them out, sold them, rebought them. You know the cycle.
Like next to me is literally a table, a card table, and
Got all
just
mine
stacks of
Mine are all
Magic
down
cards
here.
right over here. I love Magic, play it all the time, but that's not the point.
Sure.
The wrestling card game around that time. I don't remember what it was called. But it was sick as shit. It was a great game, and then they ruined it because they introduced too many mechanics. But I ran the Dudley Boys. Speaking of the cup, because we were talking about it. But yeah, anyway, wrestling was the shit back then because this was the start of the Attitude Era, right? Not the Attitude, but the Ruthless Aggression.
It was definitely moving into that era. It was like early 2000s. It was definitely pre-PG, but yeah, Ruthless Aggression, I think is what it was called. Yes.
Yeah.
I was a big Kane fan. Back in it was
we all used to be.
His red and black outfit where he had the whole thing where he had a damaged voice box, so he couldn't talk or something, and he was the Undertaker's brother at one point. Yeah, I remember
half brother,
right? Okay.
What the fuck's his name? Something Jacobs. Or
Glenn
something?
Jacobs. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's just the mayor of Knox County.
Yeah, Tennessee.
He's just right the next county over, 2 counties over, however many.
That's the only reason he got it.
I wonder if you ever bump into him. Do you ever bump into him at the grocery store? I'm like,
if I ever did, I would say, "Hey, dude, what's up?" I remember when you were the dentist.
Oh God, his old Icy Yankum or whatever it was.
Yes,
Isaac Yankum.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh. He's like, "Get the fuck away from me." I'm like, "All right, cool. See you
We
later."
don't go over there enough. So.
I'm not Knoxville enough.
Wrestling gimmicks, guys.
Gotta love them, dude.
So, The Mummy Returns.
Hey, we can talk about wrestling. It's relevant.
It is.
I wish somebody threw a clothesline at one of these fucking mummies. Then we could really go deep into it. Pile drive one of them.
Did nobody do a wrestling move in this whole fucking movie?
I was waiting for it in that first fight where the Scorpion King and his army are fighting the army of Thebes, and that whole thing's going on. But I was like, nah, he's just swinging his cool axe around, or he had a cool sword that made really cool noises.
I mean, it's probably better that he just does that, but we're still looking for it anyway.
So
people's elbow.
I'm gonna Why not?
Throws the elbow pad.
I'm gonna. He just rips one of his scorpion arms off.
Oh God, I need that.
No, the movie came out the same year. Speaking of wrestling moves, Shrek. When he enters the competition at Dulot or whatever, and he puts the one dude in the ankle lock. When I was a kid, that was the greatest shit ever. I was like, "Oh, fucking ankle lock!"
Why didn't anybody put that in like the best wrestling movies of all time? Like, no one ever talks about Shrek.
Shrek for that one scene.
Awesome.
Yeah. The Scorpion King, though, was directed once again by Stephen Sommers, who we talked about last week, and we've talked about for Deep Rising. He also wrote.
I forgot he did Deep Rising. Yeah. That might be his best movie.
Oh,
we love Deep Rising. It's so good. It's so much fun. But he also directed G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra, which also I forgot that BrendanFraser was in that. I was like, oh shit, he came back for another Sommers movie. All right. And then The Rock was in the sequel, but Stephen Sommers didn't direct that one. So it's kind of pretty funny that they both came back for the same franchise again.
Stephen Sommers needs to do a movie about a Yeti where they're trapped in like a snow-covered cabin or like an Arctic area, because we've already done the desert. We've already done the water on a boat. We either need to do a winter frozen area or a plane.
Oh,
or
Dan.
Space.
You're in for a treat with number 3. That's all I'll say.
No, I ain't. Fuck that movie.
If you want
I'm
that,
showing my hand. Fuck that movie.
Oh God! If you want that movie though, he should team it with like Neil Marshall. That's the guy who did Dog Soldiers, where it's just like this like kind of siege movie with werewolves. But yeah, make it a Yeti. Fuck it, that'd be kind of cool.
And make sure it's all practical too. We don't want that CG shit.
But then at the end,
with the mouth.
Yeah.
That
was the one thing with Dog Soldiers. The mouths didn't move much.
Nah, yeah, I think CG there.
Yeah, but at the end of the whole movie, it's just got to be one huge misunderstanding.
Oh, with the Yeti? That was his house, actually, or something?
Yeah. He's like, we were just coming over to say, could you keep it quiet? Could you quiet down?
Yeah.
It's a canonical tie-in to that one kid's movie from not long ago, Littlefoot, whatever it was called.
Oh, God.
Land Before Time?
No. You know what I'm talking about? Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Two different anime.
Yeah, it was like not a Pixar movie, but a movie in that vein that came out.
Yeah. Oh, like, yes.
Not fucking The Great Valley. Like, oh, there, Littlefoot.
Littlefoot. What's that?
Watch out for that T-Rex.
He has tiny feet. He's got a problem. He's got a condition. Don't make fun of him.
We got BrendanFraser back. We got Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fair, Patricia Velasquez. She's back, but she is in a much larger role in this one compared to the first one. And the screen debut of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or as he was only known at that time, The Rock.
The Rock, yeah.
Yeah, this was his first movie, and he has no lines in English.
Well, he does get that Haku Moshente line.
Oh, he does. No. I'm not saying he doesn't have any speaking lines,
right?
But they're all in ancient Egyptian. But he has no English speaking lines, and technically, he's not in the final part of the movie because he wasn't there for any of it. They had him for like 3 days. He was only on this film for 3 days because he was wrestling. Like it was a lot of conflicting stuff with wrestling, and that we'll get to more of that when we talk about the final scene of this movie. But I want to save that to the very end because that is the highly debatable, most highly talked about scene of this movie.
Because I was wondering when he did the rundown, because I remember he did like 3 or 4 flicks around the same time when he was first. Oh, okay.
2005, maybe?
He did Tooth Fairy and like maybe one other thing around that era. And then like he didn't get out of acting, but he like definitely took a break for like a year or two. And then he kind of had his return and he's kind of just been doing it ever since. So okay, that's a couple years later.
Yeah, because he did this in 2001. Scorpion King came out in 2002. So that was like his first like major role.
Right, yeah.
Then I think The Rundown and Walking Tall came out around the same time. That was 2 movies that were like, those were the ones that like put him into the stratosphere when it came to acting. And then he kind of just went off from there. I can't remember when he stopped using the Rock moniker though with his acting. I know he still uses it, but
maybe like Pain and Gain or something like that.
So good.
Oh yes.
I'm just trying to think about the timeline. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Pain and Gain is my favorite Dwayne Johnson performance because he actually puts in a performance that's not just him being himself.
Well, that's the problem with him, right?
I mean, that movie also had Mark Wahlberg, who likes to play himself in a lot of movies, but he actually played.
True.
He actually did a good performance.
Yeah.
He didn't have to read in that movie though. So
that's good. That's good.
Thank God for that.
Mark, I just put it in front of your face. We'll feed you the lines. It's fine.
You mean you guys don't want him to talk to more plants or bees or anything like that?
Please. Oh my!
I know you guys love that movie. You never brought it up before, right?
Hello, Mr. Leaf. Mr. Leaf. Oh shit! This is a plastic plant.
What's that called? The Happening? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's the Happening.
God. We are going to cover that movie at some point. It has to happen. We're gonna have an M. Night Shyamalan
about it for a while.
Anytime I have the opportunity.
Back of his head.
I'm fine with you. I'm ready.
That and Paul W.S. Anderson. Fuck you, man.
Oh, fuck.
The 2 of them.
So hard.
Son of a bitch.
Fucking you in each ear. It's like one in each ear.
I just have nightmares of Paul W.S. Anderson waking me up and going, "Do you want to watch The Happening with me?" And then follow it up with Resident Evil, the final chapter. No! And I wake up in a cold sweat.
Ever know it once in a while, he'll just hear him whisper in his ear, "Hey, I'm making another Resident Evil movie."
Oh God!
Oh God, that's
I'm about to make another video game movie. No, please, no!
No, guys. You're gonna wake up like just one morning. It's like one of those things where it feels real. It's like a dream, and you go on like, "Oh, what's going online on the news today?" It's like, "Oh, they're making a Dino Crisis movie." Following me with Mila Jovovich or whatever, starring in it. Like, God, why?
As a dinosaur. What?
Yes, please.
Oh God!
It's like this whole thing going around with Rob Zombie supposedly remaking Jaws, and people are like, "What is Sherry Moon going to play the shark?"
What? No, but it's from the opening, obvioly.
You're gonna find out Jaws grew up in a trailer park. They had a really bad upbringing.
Fuck every other movie, every other word.
No.
Oh Lord!
He's gonna duct tape someone to a chair.
That shark right there. That shark right there. He grew up in a really bad aquarium, dude. Really bad.
Right next to Orca. Fucking cellmates.
Free Willy's there too. You get some stuff in from the outside.
You got Richard Harris just standing in the corner going, "Mother of God."
Is it a sin to kill a shark?
It's a sin to kill a blade of grass. what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, what was he talking about in that movie? I mean, I understand what he was saying, but what was he fucking saying?
Oh, man. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, we have a whole Orca episode if you want to check that out. Oh, man, what a fun ride that was.
Oh, that's an interesting movie, but yes, you're right. Mummy Returns, yes. Back on the train, the Mummy train.
The hilarious thing about this movie was the fact that this movie was greenlit the day it premiered. So the day that The Mummy premiered in '99, they greenlit this movie and didn't give Steven Sommers much time. This movie came out less than 2 years after the first one. And with the amount of visual effects that they put in this movie, it's just not enough time. Especially in 2000. I mean, this was probably filmed in 2000. So you got to think, and there was just a lot of things that just didn't fall into place. He got most of his crew back. He got Adrian Biddle back to do the cinematography. Bob Duxay was the editor again. But unfortunately, Jerry Goldsmith, they couldn't get him back. But it wasn't because they couldn't get him back. It was because in 2000, he was doing a concert in London. And before he was to play a piece of the Mummy score, he turned to the audience and said, "I hate this fucking movie. It is a piece of shit." And you want to know who was in attendance during that concert? Steven Sommers. So he said, "Well, fuck you then, Jerry Goldsmith." And he brought in Alan Silvestri.
That's kind of funny that Goldsmith said that. Oh my God.
well, I remember seeing, because like the scores for the first and second Mummy are vastly different. Like you really don't get much of what Goldsmith gave us in that first Mummy. And this one is, you could definitely tell it's a Silvestri score because you can really hear some hints of like Back to the Future going on in there, and some other of his most famous scores. He kind of incorporated certain things into it, but it's an action adventure score. And so I think it's sad because I mean Jerry Goldsmith, legendary composer, composing some of the most iconic scores of all time. But that's kind of a shitty thing to do. Like, I understand if you didn't like working on a movie, but like, you're the composer, you're just making the music for the movie. Like, do you really have to like the movie?
I wonder if there was some behind the scenes we're not privy to, because that is kind of a weird thing for him to just say. He had to have known that guy was in the audience, right? Like,
maybe I invited him just so he could say it to him.
I don't know. That is bizarre, though. You're right. I mean, you got Alan Silvestri, so it's not like you got somebody that no one's ever heard of. But yeah, that is bizarre. Who knows? I kind of agree with what you're saying, but maybe they hated each other and they had a beef we're unaware of.
Oh yeah, that could be. Like, hey, fuck you, dude.
But
still unprofessional.
Oh,
but...
absolutely. Well, I remember seeing it. I was like, I wonder if Jerry Goldsmith had died at this point, but he didn't die until 2005. So
no,
it was something else. And then to read that, I was like, oh, all right, that makes a lot of sense. This movie came out May 4th, 2001. It had a runtime of 129 minutes, so 2 hours and 9 minutes. It's longer than the first one. It had a budget of $98 million, so I believe it was like $30 million more than the first one.
How much of that went to the actors, though? Because, again, like you're saying, that CGI, I know it's a time thing, but also, like, if you knew you were going to have a battle with 1 million Anubis soldiers at the end of your film, maybe, like, either get more money or say, yeah, BrendanFraser, sorry, we can't pay you $10 million more. Please calm down.
Yeah. But it brought in $435 million, so it did well.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Technically not as well as the first one compared to its budget, but it made both movies made about the same amount of money. So that's why we got number 3, which would come out 7 years after this one.
We also got The Ride. I think it's either Universal or Disney.
Yes. I talked about it last week. I wrote that.
Oh, you did?
A lot growing up. Yeah.
I wrote it when they were first like putting it together, and they're like, "Oh, we're testing this ride out. It's not done yet, so it might not go all the way through." And it's like, "Fuck it, we'll go on." Great
Sounds
ride.
like a horror movie, dude.
The ride's awesome.
I know. Yeah, I know, right? I think they might have recently just replaced it, but if you just looked it up, Brett, you tell me.
No, I think it's still there.
Okay.
I went there. I mean, it's been a while. I went there in 2016 and wrote it twice, so it was there in 2016.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about it since. I know, like,
Maybe the one in Cali is getting removed, and the one in Florida isn't. It might be one of those weird things. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I heard.
Especially with the
That's what I heard.
BrendanFraser resurgence going on, people would be like hammering to go on the Mummy ride.
Oh yeah.
I mean, listen,
They want the whale version.
I want the Jaws ride back, man. It wasn't anything like super intricate or special, but it was awesome. That ride was awesome. It sucks, like you go to Universal and you're just like going on all these rides that are based on all your favorite movies, and then they're like changing them up. So like the Jurassic Park ride is now the Jurassic World ride, and I'm like, but I like Jurassic Park more. I like those dinosaurs more than all these fucking genetic. Like, stop it.
I mean, yeah, that ride's still kind of fun, but I know exactly what you mean. It's like, just keep it the old way. Like, maybe update it just so it's easier to maintain, but we don't need to always go to the next franchise or the next series in the franchise.
E.T.'s still kicking around at Universal, so that ride's been there since like 1984.
Yeah. They're selling those candles, man.
Sell that fucking dude. When that ride sells out, sell the props to some German porn studio. They'll make a sequel to the porn, and there you go. Boom.
Oh God. Dookie 2 or Nuki 2. Excuse me.
There you go. Touch of the scrote. Got it.
Man. So yeah, ILM came back to do the visual effects on this movie. A lot more, probably double the amount of visual effects that they did on the first one.
That's shocking to hear. I can't believe this is ILM. Well,
ILM did the first one. It was done by John Benton Jr. was the visual effects supervisor, and he came back for this one, and he was actually on an episode of Visual Effects React over on a Corridor Crew YouTube channel where they talk about visual effects in different movies and kind of poking fun at certain things, but also kind of talking about, because they're visual effects artists themselves. And they had John Benton on to talk about the effects for The Mummy, and then they had him come back to talk about The Mummy Returns. And he was just saying, like, it was a lot less time to do a lot more visual effects, which
that's what I was thinking.
Really sucks to hear, because the fact that the thing that I have a big problem with this movie with is I feel like they stepped away from a lot of the practical effects that they used in that first one.
All those like mummies and stuff. Like, I mean, there was still a decent amount of CGI in that first film, but there's like hands and things that BrendanFraser and them are interacting with. And it's like, this one is like, there's that rod that Jonathan carries around.
Yep.
That's about it. The spear. Yeah. Right. As we find out, it's like, and again, I know we're going to talk about it, but like that end fight scene, that's so like iconic. There's a better word than iconic. It's like the bad version of iconic. That's just like, I feel bad for everyone that just thought this was gonna look a certain way and then it just didn't, where it's like, maybe it would have been better just have the fucking Rock in there with a sword and call it a day, but we'll get there.
I think it would have been better. Yeah, I would have gone with that.
I mean, there's really not a lot of like super interesting behind the scenes stuff with this, other than talking a lot about the visual effects. But I think jumping into the plot and then talking about it while we're talking about the plot is a better way of going about it. So if you're ready, Sean,
I'm ready.
I think we're all ready to talk about the plot of The Mummy Returns. So, Sean, we have a new cheesy intro to this thing, so if you could join along if you want. But are you ready, Dan and Angela?
Oh God, I hope so.
All right, it is time to dissect that.
Woo!
Do appreciate you, Sean.
Only kind of messed it up. Only kind.
It's okay.
No.
We mess it up every week. It's okay. It's okay. It's part of the charm.
Always pooch it. Always.
So we are in Thebes in 3067 BC, which is like 2,000 years before the timeline of Imhotep. So you want to try to keep track of this? The timelines don't make any fucking sense in these movies, by the way, because
they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, like with the plot when we kind of get to the whole like Evie and the priestess thing. That fucks up everything from the first movie, but we're not there yet.
Oh, they packed a bunch of like, do you think they'll notice this? In there?
Shove this fucking gauze into this plot hole wound.
There you go.
But yeah, we start at Thebes, you're right, with the Scorpion Kings. He's just going to attack. He's like, I just want to be in charge. Let's go after the army of Thebes.
Yep. And I remember watching this last night going, why are they running so slow? It's like, they're not even running. They're like, we're going to get there someday, guys. We're just going to jog it down the road here. And we get some great narration by Ardeth Bay, played by Oded Fair, because again, you had him do brilliant narration in the first one, bring him back to tell us a story about the Scorpion King, and we get this fight. They tell us that it lasts 7 years. Did they fight? Did they just fight the whole time for 7 years? It just shows you that fight, and then they're just all like exhausted, walking away. It's like it was 7 long years, and it's like the whole time.
Yeah,
Wouldn't they be dead?
D&D campaign. Got it.
I guess they could have shown.
Go ahead.
I guess they could have shown some like tattered tents or some shit, but they're like, just walk away looking defeated. I guess it'll get the point across.
Now turn around, Rock, and grimace at the camera. There you go.
But the funny thing is like during the battle, it looks like the Scorpion King and his army are doing pretty well. Then it's like, nope, he lost. Yeah. He's wandering away.
Wow. All the action shots of the Rock and his people just like careening into people, cutting them in half. But then it's like, yeah, they lost. It's like, oh, okay.
The noises that his sword makes when he's cutting people, it's so overdone.
Oh well, it's like 300. You know.
You're like, wow.
That obviously came a couple years later, but that kind of quick cut with all the sound effects was popular in the early 2000s.
And that slight slow-mo that they would do.
Yeah. Oh, there's a little bit of it in here.
So yeah, him and the Scorpion King and his army, they're defeated. They're wandering through the desert now, and his army's slowly dying off, and he decides to make a deal with Anubis, who's the Lord of the Dead, and a scorpion comes out of the sand. So is he considered the Scorpion King before he makes a deal?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because he has the bracelet before that. So
because Anubis has nothing to do with scorpions,
right?
It's just the symbolicism of that thing being a scorpion to get him to create the pact, which I think is kind of cool. And then it like stabs him and he eats it, and the oasis surrounds him. But yeah, Anubis is like the god of death, and it's like represented by that dog. It's one of those.
He's a jackal.
Like yeah, exactly.
That's why we get the jackal in The Omen, because it's kind of based off of this. Yeah. But yeah, he makes a deal with Anubis. And he gives him his army. He also sprouts an oasis called Amsher. And he fights alongside the Anubis army. And to be honest, the Anubis army looks pretty good in this first scene. Like I thought the CG work was done pretty well. Sometimes they do too close of a zoom, and you're like, okay, back up. But it was cool, especially when it's like, oh yeah, I just love when Anubis is just like, okay, you're done. It just takes his soul. It's like, Wah!
The second that he wins the fight, he like doesn't even give him a day to celebrate, like, taking his glory. It's like, no, the contract is done. You're dead.
It's like one of those timed demos, just because you was playing. What were you playing?
I was playing Power Wash Simulator on the VR. I got a demo.
And she's like sitting there playing her. I'm just like, she's like doing it. It's like, no, it's over. And I was like,
Those are the worst when you were minutes. Those are the worst when you were a kid and you got like the disc in the mail of the demo for like whatever upcoming games, and you play and you're like, you're getting into it, and then it's just like, what?
The only good one was the one on the Dreamcast. It had like Power Stone, so like if you didn't mind reloading it every time, it was like, well, you got a 2-minute match. It's like, it's not the full game, but it's something you could play for an hour and have a good time.
Didn't that also have like Virtua Tennis on it too?
That and like House of the Dead, you could play like one level. So it's
so
like
good, dude.
Pretty good demo, actually.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, his soul gets taken and the Anubis army disappears, and then we see kind of the same kind of transition that we saw in the first one, where we go from ancient Egypt to now present day Egypt, which present day would be 1933. Keep that date in mind, because the last one was in 1926, which math means that would be 7 years.
Oh, 7 they say years. 9.
They say 9. We don't know how old the kid is. Some things say that he was 10. I'm like, this makes no fucking sense.
I guess if it was 9, that would make sense, but you're right, huh? They fucked that one up.
So the O'Connells, they're down in a tunnel. They're digging up more tombs. And this is when we get Evie's first like premonition thing going on here, where she sees her past life, where they're like traveling through, they find a door, and she like, goes into her other world mode, and then she sees Anaxinamun come at her, and then she knows exactly what she needs to do to get into each part of the tomb. And the best thing about this movie for me is just all the one-liners that BrendanFraser gets in this movie. It's so fucking good.
Well, they knew it worked in the last film, and they tried to replicate that sometimes to the point where it actually hurts the movie, which a lot of sequels end up running into that problem. It's not exclusive to The Mummy Returns. And I think part of that is they're trying to get that Indiana Jones feel, which I think the first movie gets very, very close to nailing. So they're like, oh, we almost nailed that. So we got to like overdo it in the second one to like overcompensate. And this is kind of your first peek into that, because it does start with this cool shot of BrendanFraser kind of going through this tomb, going through the cobwebs. You're like, oh, okay, more Indiana Jones shit. That's what I liked about that first movie. And then it's like, oh, they have a kid. And it's like, that could be an interesting wrinkle, but then it's like, well, maybe not. I don't know. I think the kid could have done way more in this film. He's still pretty good, but we get this kid. What's his name? Alexander?
His name's Alex. Yeah. But his the actor's name is Freddie Both, and I guess he was a huge fan of the first movie to the point where he turned down being in the Harry Potter movies to be in this.
Well, at least you're remembered as the kid in Mummy Returns, I guess, unless he was going to be one of the main characters, then he fucked up.
But
I was Neville.
Oh no, no!
What
I mean, they casted Neville perfectly.
Oh, Neville. I was gonna say, what if he was Draco Malfoy? He like really fucked up.
That's what I was
He
gonna
really
say.
blew it.
Yeah, like you're done. You're pooched, bro.
But yeah, I guess he was the person to go to when they were trying to keep like continuity. They would go to him and be like, where do we go from here? Even though the movie still breaks continuity in a lot of parts where you're like, what? Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
This is Steven Sommer's movie. Could he just like put the VHS in?
Well, he wrote and directed both movies, so that's the thing I don't get.
Just in case you forget, hey, I'm a forgetful guy. Like I'm sure you as a podcaster, like I don't remember the shit I said like 5 seconds ago. And just put your fucking tape in. Check your old script. Do you not remember your notes?
Well, the year thing gets me, like that Brett brought up. But the thing that gets me is like when he starts introducing these flashbacks, which it is kind of an interesting concept. And I do like the visual every time we kind of do this in the movie. But it's also like, okay, I mean, we're not there yet. But then like the actual like story behind that just is like, but what happened to what you said in the first movie? I thought she was the ancestor of the fucking the what was she, a priestess or princess? And now it's like, well, actually she was, but it was a different princess, but she's still the ancestor. But like now, if you really think about it, it really makes zero sense. It makes less sense than Back to the Future, for fuck's sakes. But don't overthink it, because we have a couple of cool fight scenes between them, and that makes it better somehow. Sorry to skip too ahead if I just did, but that is just part of the movie that doesn't work for me. And this is where you start to get those inklings like you're talking about, Brett, where it's like they're going through this tomb. And like I said, they introduce their son, and now their son's like upstairs waiting. And now there's like people coming in, just like the first movie. Like, we're going to kill the O'Connells, those fucking bastards. It's like, all right, like we're already retreading territory, which I get it. It's a sequel. You're going to get that. But it's like instantly I'm like, all right, we're doing this again.
Yeah, these three.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but
I did not like these guys at all. They did not like.
They're the Pirates of the Caribbean bad guys. They're just like in there for comedy.
But those guys are like more entertaining. Like I love the guy who just walks around calling Keira Knightley "Pop It" every.
His fucking eyes always falling out.
He's the guy from Seinfeld who him and George get into the battle about the parking spot.
Yes.
You think I'm a phony?
I don't know. It's a trope in a lot of things. I don't remember the timeline on Pirates. Maybe that was a couple years later, actually. But that's just what I felt like with those characters. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny what happens to them on some level, even though it is fucked up. But you're like, all right, so more people trying to stop the O'Connells, who also clearly didn't learn their lesson at all. And even BrendanFraser jokes about that. He's like, Evie, well, I remember what you said about reading a book. It won't do anything. Like, I warned you. She's looking at this tomb.
Well, at first she goes, oh, well, there's nothing bad happens opening a chest. And I was like, well, why don't you talk to the American dudes who opened a chest in the last one? They didn't do so well.
With the giant Scorpion King logo that she recognizes instantly. She's like, oh, that's the Scorpion King. Oh, I didn't know it was real. I thought it was just a rumor.
It comes back every 5,000 years and seems about right about this time.
Yeah, and they have that gag. where BrendanFraser's like, oh, and let me guess, if you don't do this, everyone's gonna die. And she's like, how'd you know that? And he's like, just kind of used to it.
Seems normal. When you first see Evie in that first scene, though, she's wiping off a wall, and it shows two women fighting, which is like foreshadowing for the fights later on in the movie. But also, why are you leaving your 7-year-old kid just alone? Like, I understand you're like in the middle of the desert, like most likely there's nobody there, but it's also ancient Egypt, and there is the fact there is treasure in these tombs, so there are grave robbers. They existed. So why are we leaving our 7-year-old kid up in just this big ass room? I don't know. But these three goons show up. They all got the English. You got the one who's like, "This is cursed. This tomb is cursed." I'm like, shut up.
They even make fun of him in the movie. They're like, everything's cursed to you.
It's like, God, chill out with the curses, man. God.
I mean, he was right. That's the funny thing. Because it's like every time you watch one of these movies, you're probably sitting there at home like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. That's fucking cursed. Up. That's probably cursed. And he's like the living embodiment in the movie of that.
Yeah, because then you have the other guy, the tall, lanky guy, he's an idiot. He's just an absolute
he's like the
moron.
guy from Pirates, the eyeball guy.
Yeah. But he doesn't even have his moment of being smart. He's just dumb the whole movie. Well, as long as he lasts, anyway.
I mean,
right, like the son shooting him with the pellets, like Dennis the Menace, and like, I mean, I get you wouldn't just initially put that together, but he's not even like trying to. He's just like, it's a ghost.
He's like, oh my butt. Ah!
The other guy's a little smarter. He actually uses his observation, his eyes, and he looks around and is like, I wonder if it's coming from there. And then that's kind of a great scene. And when he grabs the pellet out of the air, and
that's impressive.
The son's like, oh shit. It's a good kind of interesting opening too, because you're setting up these predicaments that are kind of staccating on top of each other.
There's also a lot of adults in this movie who are just so hell-bent on killing a 7-year-old child, by the way.
Oh, especially that main guy, that main like Red Magi or whatever they are called.
Lochna, yeah,
Lochna. He is just like, I can't wait to gut this fucking kid.
Well, I can't really disagree with the guy.
He's kind of annoying, and you're dealing with like a murderer, like a known murderer. Maybe just like watch what you say, but he doesn't care at all.
I know. Like, listen, dude, they don't have to kill you, but you can beat the shit out of you.
Like,
it's very simple.
Especially, this is after he meets Imhotep. So it's like, he's still being a little prick after he just saw an undead man just peel off a mask, and it's like beetles crawling all in his face. Yeah.
I mean, they did the way Stephen Sommers did write that character. That was kind of interesting. He mostly pulls from his dad, but he's got his mother's smarts, and kind of her coyness. So it's like he actually wrote a pretty good son character, I thought, by taking different traits and weaknesses from both parents.
Yeah, I've never disliked this character. I'm not the big, like, child actors and child performances are very hit and miss. And this one is kind of in the middle of the road. Like, it's not great, but it's not awful. Like, he's not right in it. It's not. I can't stand this kid.
He's not in it enough to really like make a really fair assessment. Other than he's fine.
Yeah. So we get the whole thing where they open up the chest and they see the bracelet of the Scorpion King, and then it sets off a flood. And I'm like, boy, this is like Jumanji. We got like this movie turns into Jumanji for a little bit. They get that. You get the whole dominoes effect with the pillars, which is supposed to be a callback to the library scene in the first one.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
But instead of saying oops, like she says, he goes, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for like Keanu to come around the corner like,
whoa. He does say to mom and dad, I can explain everything.
After they just busted through a wall that he's pretty much saved them on accident.
Well, that's your Indiana Jones shit. Like things stacking on top of each other, and it just happens to work out for him.
Great.
That I liked, but now that you mentioned that it's like the library scene from one, I'm like, fuck. Now I don't like it as much, but at least it's different.
So we are back in Hymenoptera as we're digging up old boy Imhotep once again, and we are joined by Anaxinamun's reincarnated body. I don't who are you?
Right. In body only.
Well, that's the thing, is she is what Evie is with Nefertiri later. Like, she is the in-body spirit of Anaxinamun, whatever.
Right.
But
her name's Denise. She's a yoga instructor.
Well, right. She's clearly just like bought into this cult and is like, yeah, you could take my soul out and put her soul in. I don't give a shit. Because it's like that, like, it's not even Stockholm syndrome because it's not like they have her locked in a cage and are telling her she needs to do this. She's just like fully bought into it, clearly. And it's kind of an interesting character because of that. I kind of wish she was a little bit more the focus, but I feel like she kind of gets lost in the shuffle and then just kind of becomes Imhotep's left-hand woman, I guess, and just kind of disappears. But I do like this first half of the film where she is kind of our main bad guy and she's kind of presenting herself as the badass in the group because she even is, I forget the name of the other character, but the other main bad guy who's kind of leading these anti-magi, these evil magi, Saruman's troops,
Baltus Hephaestus.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
No, dude, it's the Los Illuminados, dude. That's what they are. The cloaked fuckers from the castle. That's all they are.
Oh, from Resident Evil 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I just thought she was a good villain, and then it's just like that idea is kind of interesting. If you read a lot about cults or you watch a lot of films that kind of cover these kind of topics, like you do see this kind of shit really does happen. Like there's those women that I think even one of them actually did get married to like Charles Manson in jail, and it's like, okay, you're out to lunch, but yeah, that it lines up. I don't know, it kind of works. Even though, by the way, Imhotep had his immortality stolen at the end of the last film, and now it somehow is just alive in this Jurassic Park amber.
Yes,
what?
Yeah, and gets his powers back. It's got to be that entry in the Book of the Dead that gives him his powers back because he got his powers sucked out. He drops into the jelly goo pool,
the face goo shit.
Yeah, then he looks like he just got dug out of Jurassic Park, or I feel like they dug him out of Dino Hatton from Super Mario Brothers. Like,
the fungus.
Yeah, he's the fungus, man. Like, what is going on here?
And it's like a perfect chiseled out thing. You're like, yes, here's Imhotep. We'll revive him.
I like how they gotta like wipe it off like it's glass to be like, yep, that's him. I see his face in there. It's all right. Oh no, that's his mummy dick. Get out of here.
They also have that whole scene.
Looks like a preserved caterpillar.
A little bit actually. But like while they're like digging him up, the Americans, that's when they go home with their tail between their legs. They're like, yeah, we couldn't stop them. We couldn't get the thing to open the book. We couldn't really get anything. So you're still gonna pay us, right? They're like, no, we have another job for you fucking losers. We're going to go take care of it. We should have gone ourselves, like the classic villain trope.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, man. So the next part is hilarious is when they find where he is, but he's surrounded by the scarabs and the sand starts to rise and everyone just stands there staring at the rising sand and doesn't run. Run!
But they knew what was going to happen because they have guys with flamethrowers on standby. So, like, somebody knew. They're like, fuck the workers. Just like the first one when they have them open the coffin. They're like, fuck those guys. Let them get killed.
And they just turn into, like, they're just acid all over their face. Ah!
I wonder if this was a common hazard in, like, Egypt back in the day when they used to dig. It wasn't like methane pockets. Like, shit, we got a scarab pocket in pit 4, Bob. Like, all right, we'll just cover it up.
Get the flamethrowers. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
These people are getting paid like a doubloon a day to get eaten alive by scarab beetles, burned alive, acid spit on them.
Oh, man. So we're back with... when they find him... They find out that they don't have the bracelet.
Right. Oh, that's what it is. The bracelet.
They got the thing. Oh no, wait. Never mind. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. We're back with the O'Connells. They live in this massive house
with the gold that they got from fucking Benny at the last.
Seriously.
At the end.
Thank you, Benny. Imagine that's what the house is called. It's called the Benny.
Please, has to be.
This house is dedicated to Kevin J. O'Connor. Thank you for your contribution.
Just golden statues of him all in the house.
He was so greedy, he got us this house, and he's dead.
Poor guy.
Fuck him. He was an asshole. Fuck him.
He was an asshole.
Yeah,
but I talked about him. I talked about it last week. I really would have loved him to have not died in the last one and be back.
Oh, I'm
in this
sure
one.
Stephen Sommers regrets writing him out of it. That was his comedy relief, and now he had to write the kid to kind of be that, and Jonathan, of course. But I feel like he was kind of stretching that idea a little much between those two characters. He tried.
Sorry, he came back in Van Helsing. It's okay.
I wish they would have just brought back Benny Zombie. Benny Mummy.
I
would've
was
been fine
thinking
with
about that, or him like as like some kind of scarab monster that helps Imhotep, but
It just hangs out of his shoulder. But it's Benny. It's like he ate his soul. It's like attached to this scarab.
like a
No.
devil on his shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah, he's got the devil and the angel.
Oh my god.
He's got two.
But it's just two Bennies.
Yes,
Like there's no redeeming difference between the two. It's just Benny.
Which one has the fez so you can tell which one's evil and which one's good?
Oh,
He does
it's
in
the
Lord
Fez.
of Illusions. He's a magician that like flies around. Maybe that's the good one.
Maybe.
I would have liked to see it. I couldn't think of a place. I was actually picturing like a human sized, like a husk type thing, like with these like scarab beetles all over it. Something out of like
Just floating.
I don't know, maybe, but like out of the mind of like Wes Craven or
He's
Clive
close.
Barker.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
But no, Kevin J. O'Connor wasn't coming back for whatever this mind fuck idea was. He's just dead.
Yep.
They don't find
Yep.
his corpse. They just find the scarab beetles and they flamethrower the shit out of him.
Yeah, because he can't be buried. He can't be that far away from where Imhotep is. Like, imagine it's just one digger. He's just like,
Oh
"Find another body. Nah, fuck that guy. But you
Maybe
put the
that
same
was
guy on
Maybe
Wrong
that
one.
was the scarab pocket.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
'Cause
Yeah,
that's where all
yeah.
the scarabs were at when he died. So
there. Oh, all right. Yeah.
Thankfully, the O'Connors. That's their name, right? The O'Connors, or that's
O'Connells.
that's Roseanne. Well, yeah, the O'Connells. They have that massive house because Betty had put all that treasure on
Yeah.
those camels before he got killed.
Yep.
And I kind of love that detail because even Jonathan's like, "Oh, my fortune! This is the only thing that's left. I lost the rest to other sources, like clearly like loan sharks or some shit or gambling."
Yeah.
But it is this massive, like fucking Bruce Wayne ass house with like
Oh, it's
artifacts, like this colonialism kind of shit, like all this shit that they got from different places. Like Indiana Jones used to give all his artifacts to like museums. They just kept it. They're like, fuck it, we got this thing hanging on a wall here.
Like, this thing looks cool. I know a lot about it. My friends think it's cool.
they must be wonderful dinner guests.
They do always mention how they are friends with the British Museum, though, so I guess that they're cool with
Well,
having
yeah.
have all this shit at their house.
Well, Evie talks about the Benbridge scholars want her to run the British Museum at one point. And the guy who's like running the anti-Magi, he's the one who runs the British Museum currently because they're like, oh, it's that guy? Huh? That's weird.
Why is it always a museum curator? Because the last one was a Magi.
Yeah.
And now this one's like the evil version.
Right, the librarian guy, Erica Estrada, was like her boss or whatever, right?
Eric
Yeah,
Estrada.
Oh, not Eric Estrada. What is his name? That's a different guy. That's the guy from
Eric,
Chips.
oh shit, I can't remember.
It's over now. I ain't calling him nothing else.
Eric Estrada. That's
Imagine that. He's got the Chips jacket on and everything.
Yes.
Eric Avari.
it. Eric Avari.
There you go.
But he's like, yeah, I see what you're saying though, Dan. It's like, it's like that kind of character's always in charge. They just happen to know him. Oh yeah, he works at the fucking. You never noticed how anti all this shit he was. He kept that to himself somehow.
People are like, oh, dude, I found this piece of paper. It tells a lot about the Magi. Oh shit, it fell into this candle. Like, it's
Right.
it's the opposite of the other. Or he just eats it.
Oh god, yeah.
This guy's way worse than Eric, than that curator from the first one. This guy sucks
Oh well,
on
that
so
guy.
many levels.
Right, Eric Avari ends up being like their ally and actually sacrifices himself so they can get away. This guy's just like, no, I'm evil.
Yep.
Up until like my last moment on screen.
So Evie mentions the fact that she wants to go back out and find them, Cher. And Rick's is like, oh, have we not learned from our past adventures that this might not be a good idea? She's like, it's fine. You can play with your guns more. And he's like, fine.
Listen, hey, the selection of guns, I'm a little disappointed in a few of them that are missing in this movie. I'm just saying. There's fewer swapped out, and I'm just like,
I was gonna say, is this a downgrade? It seemed like you would know, Dan. You have a pretty good familiarity with firearms.
a little bit, but I like to research. I'm
More
his
than
shock
me,
and-
put it that way.
Okay, fair enough. But the shock, I'm mad he misses his Camelot pistols, his 1893 little revolvers he had.
Well, you
He
want to
saw
know
his
why he doesn't
1911.
have those? Because
Go
you
ahead.
gave him the fucking Jonathan to fire, or maybe that's this
Oh.
movie,
He
and he
threw 'em.
threw them. Asshole.
That bitch. Well, okay, let's just say hypothetically he just couldn't, he threw them or he just couldn't find any more 11 millimeter
Right,
ammo
yeah.
because who the fuck has that? So he has the 1911s and he lost his pump 1897, which I love that gun, but he's got the lever 1887 Winchester, which is sweet.
It's a cool shotgun.
It's a cool shotgun. And then it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like I just really liked his revolvers and some of the gunplay and stuff, and then it's just a little bit of a downgrade.
Doesn't he say he's got a Tommy gun or some shit? Because like Ardeth's like, I want the machine gun. And he's like,
he gives him
this thing.
He gives him the old street sweeper, the Chicago typewriter.
Oh, it is a typewriter. Okay,
yeah. It's the actual Thompson. It's not a military one though. It's a civilian model.
I do love those scenes though. Every time he fucking throws out the sack of just weapons and ammo, it's like, all right, shit's about to go down.
And this one is attached to the back of his car.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But we see Alex put on the Scorpion King bracelet, and he sees like different parts of Egypt, and that's kind of it. But he's the only one who can see it. So
apparently, he's the only one that can hear it too.
Yeah, right.
I don't know about that because like I feel like they don't ever elaborate on that, so that could be true. But like when Imhotep is walking in the scene later when he's watching it, it seemed like Imhotep actually knew what was happening. But maybe I'm reading too deeply into that.
I don't think so because he's the only reason he's there. Like
okay.
The reason they take him is because he has the bracelet on.
Right,
because the bracelet is the key. It's not going to like. As they said, that bracelet only brings you to Umshare. It doesn't really do anything. Oh, well, actually, no, it does unlock the army of Anubis. But I don't think Imhotep cared about that.
They literally reveal that in the last 20 minutes, to be fair.
In this, like, fucking arcade-looking machine.
They also, like...
The great scorpion own a hole.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, God. I mean, I'm not advocating
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for cutting a child's arm off, but they clearly make it clear that once he has it on there, they can't remove it. It's going to fuck up the timing or something. Yeah. There's a reason why they don't just kill him and take it off, but it is also a reason for him to just survive all these events.
Yeah.
Plot armor.
What?
Plot armor.
It is massive plot armor for this kid.
It kind of works. It is, though, 100%.
So we see Jonathan once again, and he's parading around as Rick. He's got a lady there, and Noxinamoon adjacent shows up with her goons with an asp, which is a very venomous snake. And she wants to give Jonathan a kissy with it, and the snake just doesn't bite him when he's like within, like he's touching his lip, and the snake's like, it doesn't do nothing. And then
so I figured he misconstrued this. He's like, yeah, I'll take a piece of asp. Oh, that's very different.
He wasn't even looking at the snake. He was so enamored with the woman, and he was like,
But
Rick shows up, and it's like, oh, the asp is no longer interested in Jonathan.
I love when she throws the asp. He catches it, and he does the same, and he throws it back at her, or he throws it at a guy.
At it.
Yeah,
he just weaponizes it.
Yeah. But the knife throw, where the guy throws the knife and he catches it and then throws it back, and it's that one guy who always avoids death throughout the entire movie, except for one part, and it's because of Jonathan.
Yep.
It's so good. But yeah, this is when chaos ensues in the house. You know, gunfire and everything. People jumping out of windows.
Ardeth shows up. He's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm here to protect you."
He left his dune.
Yeah, he's not on his hill. That's why he was fucked. He left the hill.
But yeah, he faces off against Lochna, who's played by Adewale. I'm going to try really hard to pronounce his name. Akinwumi Agbaje, who plays Killer Croc in that really good Suicide Squad movie. He's been in a lot of things.
The first one? Oh, God.
Yeah. He's been in a lot of things. He was in he was in Oz, the TV show.
I just know him from Congo. He's the guy that tells Tim Curry to stop eating his sesame cake.
I fucking knew it!
Yeah, that's...
He's like,
put down that cake! And he's like, I'm about to kill fucking Tim Curry because he hates him so much.
Stop eating my sesame cake!
Okay, listen. My wife and kids just made me a birthday cake today. And my wife can attest, I have to watch how food is in our house because some of our kids like to take sweets when they're not supposed to. I literally went into the kitchen and yelled, "Don't eat my sesame cake!"
I honestly thought you were making fun of me because I said, "Stop drinking my lemonade," and it was you that
screaming. Yes, I I haven't seen Congo forever, but I always remember that scene. And every once in a while when I remember it, I quote it. So I didn't realize that was the dude, but I just felt like it was the dude.
I mean,
I would like to go ahead.
I was going to say that movie's not great, but it has a lot of memorable moments. So I think that's a Stephen King
Michael
movie.
Crichton.
Oh, it's Crichton.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah, because it would. I mean, we wouldn't have hand signing apes. They would be. At least they wouldn't be in Africa. They'd be in like wherever.
Yeah,
this northeast Maine, I guess. I don't know where he does his fucking movies at.
Right.
Gorilla
right.
live in Maine. Anyway, I don't know.
The Jurassic Park guy, right?
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, no, but that dude is built like a brick shit house, dude.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, a shit brick house. That's why I need to say it. I said it wrong. No, he's stacked like a motherfucker.
No, he's got like an 8-pack, man. Like he could just break you without even trying.
He just looks at you, just folded in half.
I do.
What's happening?
Yeah, I kind of do love the through line that him and Ardeth have. They're just kind of like this is their first confrontation, and there's a couple like mini confrontations throughout. A lot of just kind of glaring at each other from across canyons, but when they finally do have their final matchup at the end, it's pretty satisfying.
I think what this is this is our build up to when we get the Mummy anime prequel. And it's going to be a Magi high school drama.
Oh,
no! And they're going to be buddies in high school, and then something's going to go wrong, and he's going to drop out of Magi school and go to, like, Red Cult school.
Oh,
and
God.
then they'll be rivals.
My Hero the Mummy?
Yes.
Or something like that.
That's not what I was thinking.
Magi Hero Academia.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few animes that kind of have gone down that rabbit hole. I mean, Battle Royale comes to mind. That'd be kind of fucked up, but
Dude, I got Sean real quick before we just go further down this hole for a second. Have you watched Jujutsu Kaisen?
I am familiar with it, but I've only seen the first episode. I've heard the manga's gotten pretty dark, but I don't want details, but that is what I've heard. I don't know if that's where you're going with it or not, but
very rough. I'm not going to spoil anything. I didn't know anything about it till my son. Like he's like, you're just watching this, bitch, and I'm like, all right, sure. So we sat down and we watched it, and I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. It's one of the best anime I've watched in a while. But I've watched the first 2 seasons. If you get time, I would recommend finishing the available seasons.
Okay.
So anyway,
That's what I was thinking.
Orin Host Club. It's that, but with Magi. Like, what's going on? But one of them has to be a woman that cross dresses as a man.
Yeah.
So they get a beard before they go to the stoning because women aren't allowed at the stoning.
Yes. Got you. Right. Well, right. Mel Brooks, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Sorry, carry on.
So Ardeth explains the whole situation. He's like, "Oh yeah, so they dug up Imhotep again. That's cool." And they're like, "All right,
again,
we're doing this shit again."
What was the point of this? Like this epitaph of like the Grim Reaper, this Egyptian Grim Reaper, which is also kind of confusing in that first film, but I just kind of roll with it. Where it's like, well, that wasn't his soul; it was immortality. But now again, like he's just back, and he just needs to suck the souls out of these guys on the train, and that just counts.
The funniest thing about this movie, I mean, one of the funniest things about this movie is the fact that in the first one, they accidentally dig up Imhotep. It wasn't like they were looking for him and then he comes alive and all that shit. This one, it's like people are actively looking for Imhotep. Like, how many people found out about Imhotep? Like, where they're just like, we got to get him.
I guess they
found a woman that looks like his girlfriend. she's gonna help us.
yeah. She just turned up, but it's like that thing where it's like, how did the Magi miss like this like 400 person sect in their group that were disgruntled? Like, yeah, we can't wait for Imhotep to come back. That week where he was back was the best week of our life. Like, what the fuck?
They didn't learn the first time.
Oh,
apparently.
What's his name? The dude that perches upon the hill.
Ardeth Bay.
Hey, Ardeth. Do you think because like he left?
It just fucked everything up.
Oh god!
No, because he was for some odd reason. There's this big group, and like he decides to go undercover in it. Like if Ardeth's not up here, we're not watching the fucking hill. And they just all left and just left him there. That was last time.
I mean, we talked about in the first one the fact that the Magi suck at their job.
Yeah,
like they're just not good.
They are terrible.
They're like the Watchers on the Wall from Game of Thrones. They just been doing it so long they got weak or they got
complacent.
No, complacent. But I mean, I'm saying all that, but boring. I think they do actually explain in the movie that their whole goal is like not that they're anti-Magi. I mean, we'll just say that's what they are for the sake of argument, the Red Magi, whatever you want to call them. But their whole goal is like, well, the Scorpion King is destined to come back, because of X, Y, and Z reason. And the only way we're going to beat him is if we have Imhotep, because for some reason he's the only mummy in this universe. And I understand because you have the first one. Why would you introduce a new character? It does make some sense, some modicum of sense. But it's this thing where it's just like, well, Imhotep can stop the Scorpion King, so now we're worshiping Imhotep, but not really, but we are.
We're worshiping this high priest who
murderer, by the way,
fucked the pharaoh's wife, and was given a curse that would make him the most powerful being on the planet.
Well,
if he was awoken. I'm like, this all seems like a terrible idea. What are we doing here?
They didn't think it out in the first film, and they definitely did not in this one. You're right. Now that you mention all that.
Oh, God. Oh, I forgot to mention, Evie got taken during the whole fight in the mansion. We find out that the curator of the British Museum is the guy heading this whole thing. You find out Rick is a magi, and you're like, why did this need
that's
to be
convenient.
a thing? I don't know. Why?
Well, he wore that bracelet the whole first movie, so we have an excuse when it comes off that it was always there.
Yeah. Oh, I just got that slapped on me in the orphanage. It's like, did you? Did you really?
I don't think we needed that wrinkle. Okay, fine.
There's no real payoff to it, is there? Like, he didn't get superpowers or resurrect.
Well, no, I mean, none of the Magi have superpowers. They're just like, oh, you're cool. You're one of us. One of us.
It's that whole prophecy. A little bit. It's a prophecy thing because they keep playing up that in the movie. They lean into that a lot more than the first one. That's a prophecy because they have all those like cave paintings or etchings rather, where it's like, well, the guy with the tattoo on the arm is going to hold the Osiris and he's going to beat the Scorpion King. It's like everything's got to be very on the nose, which I understand what they're going for, but it's too on the nose.
So we're in the British Museum. Alex and Jonathan are outside watching the car. Ardeth and Rick go in, and head of Anti-Magi is doing his readings from the good book. And man, when Evie reads this exact same passage, by the way, in the first movie, it's very just like nonchalant, just, she's reading the passage. This dude is like giving a sermon. He's like, saying the lines and everything.
It's like Temple of Doom, man. It's like so over the top. She's tied down. All this smoke's all over.
Ripping the heart out of somebody randomly.
Yeah.
They're in a museum, but this like one dude is like literally acting like a desk for him holding the book. I was like, just get a fucking desk, dude. Like, just get something, a stool. That's rude as piss.
I do like the idea, though, that it awakens all the mummies in the museum. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that was cool.
But a fight ensues. I love Rick's line, though, where he's just like, a couple of years ago, this would have been weird.
Mm-hmm. I concur.
But yeah, gunfight starts happening. Imhotep gets awoken. And he just doesn't look as good when he gets woken up in this one. Like, he's a little bit more Arnold Vosloo. He's not much like when he gets awoken in the first one, he is gnarly looking and he's cool. Like this one, he's like almost pretty much a human already. Kind of weird.
It's not fair because they skip like the first one. He's like super imperfect cell. Like after he's already absorbed 17, like that's where he's at right now.
In the first
it's like, that's
one,
not fair.
Doesn't he suck like 5 people's lives out in the first one? He
sucks so many people off.
Well, it was Jonathan.
It is 5, yeah.
Because he killed Jonathan Hyde, and then there was 4 Americans. So yeah, but in this one he only does 3. So it's like I guess he's already got 2.
Well, he's also
already ahead of the game. I don't know.
He's supposed to be in the same state he was when he got sucked into that goo, which is the state he actually was in. But even that is just like he was literally falling apart. I don't think that was really meant anything beyond that. But they were just like, well, it's a loophole for the movie, I guess. It's just he's at stage 3 already, to use the Dragon Ball terminology.
He's gotta let his jaw rest,
right? Yeah. Oh yeah.
When he talks in that first one as like the gooey mummy.
He also, when he was resurrected in this like Lazarus pool or whatever the fuck, he also now knows English, which I thought was a shitty addition to this. It does make him interacting with certain characters easier, obviously, mostly the son, But it's kind of this thing where it's like, I liked how in the first one he just spoke Egyptian, because why would he know English? It doesn't make any sense. And it's
Doesn't
just
he
like,
only speak English in that one scene with the son?
Yeah, it's literally one scene. I wish he just didn't. And the son actually knows Egyptian. That they even have a repeat joke from the first one later, talking about that. But I just thought that was such a weird addition. And you're right. If it was throughout the film, maybe it would have been more distracting. But why even do it? Sorry for the side tangent there. I just thought of that.
No, I mean, to be honest, I think they kind of explain why he speaks English in that one scene. The fact that it was like, because the son knows ancient Egyptian. So it's kind of the whole thing where since he understands it, they just turned it into English.
Yeah.
But I also think it had to benefit the actor too.
Yeah, maybe the little kid maybe it wasn't working with him talking a different language. Maybe it was just like the scene sucked without him doing that. Maybe.
So go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to concur. This whole time you're just talking, I'm just thinking of lines from him as the Black Adam. Like, that's just what I think of. Like, carry on.
So we get the whole fight in the warehouse. We get Rick saving Evie. They escape. Jonathan breaks the car key inside the ignition, which is just...
Who the fuck does that?
I just hit my head.
Why did they take the key out of the ignition to begin with? Why wasn't it just there? They're just watching the car.
I'm not in my usual movie dumpster setup. I'm like in a spare room at the moment, guys, just for the non-visually impaired, if that made any sense. People not watching the video version of this. I hit my head on the wall because I couldn't believe that. That was literally in there just for like the sake of comedy. Like, oh, what's funny? A double-decker bus. So how do we leave this brand new fucking car? Oh, we broke the key in the ignition. Okay. Yeah. Which it does lead to one of the better action sequences of the film. So, okay, Steven Sommers, you got me. But yeah, it's like, why the fuck did that happen? And then it's like, meanwhile, inside, Arnold Vosloo's like, yeah, remember those mummies from the end of the first movie, and I couldn't control them? Well, this time I could control them. And which I actually do like that callback. That's one of the few callbacks where I'm like, you know what? They earned that one. And
these were magi. These were old. These were ancient magi's. Yeah. And this is when BrendanFraser has a million one-liners in the span of like 5 minutes, because he does the whole thing where he's like, not these guys again, as they leave, and then they leave the museum and she's trying to put the bench in front. She's like, honey, these guys don't use doors, and they run away. They hop on the bus.
They go right through the walls.
Yep. And but my favorite is, where they're on the bus and he's all pissed off and he gets on it. He's like, man, I hate mummies. And then he looks at Art. He's like, just like old times, huh? And it's one of my favorites. Yeah. I love it. But
they have that one mummy that's like cut in half. That's like climbing
this whole thing
after him.
So great. I love it. Where it's like each person is on their own level fighting a different mummy. And I love it when they see them. They're running down the street, but then they hop onto the walls and they're running. And they're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's cool. And then like Rick's like fighting the one on the roof, and that I kind of like that as a role reversal, because a lot of action movies it's the other way around. The hero's on the roof getting shot at, but this time he's shooting at the monster. It's cool.
And he fights the half mummy. We get the mummy that gets squished as it's going under the bridge.
One of the most memorable things for me, because when it cuts to the mummy about to get hit, it's clearly a dude in like a suit. It's not CG anymore. And you could there's like a mouth cut, but you could see something like his nose or his tongue or something sticking out. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? And it's so striking compared to what you see in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, those might be the only mummies that, at least without looking it up, that seem like they might have been suit actors in the whole film, honestly. And even in the first movie, those ones I feel like definitely were for most of those shots. I mean, you guys just reviewed it. You tell me. I watched it, but I didn't go into do the deep dive on the trivia.
So it was pretty much anytime that Rick fought the mummies, they were CG. But
I know there's that
times
big scene in the first one. I know is all CG.
And I want to point something out. It just dawned on me watching the movie, sitting here talking about it, and after we had the conversation about the key breaking in the ignition, I'm pretty sure cars didn't have ignition style switch. Key style ignition switches in 1933. I had to just look it up. I was like, holy fuck, those would crank. And I'm like, I don't know about European cars because they are in England land. And as far as American vehicles, it wasn't mass produced in vehicles with key tumbler style ignitions until
wasn't this the time of like old school gangsters from like Chicago, like the one that Johnny
like
Depp
Al
played
Capone and all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was like the
But-
early 30s, right? So I don't think those
Yeah.
were crank, were they? Those old
No, you could
cars?
you could get there would be a manual crank, and there was an electric start, but I mean one that actually uses an ignition
Oh,
key.
okay.
The first one I know about
It was more for the
Chrysler
comedy. It was
in
more
late
for the
40s.
sight gag, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
it probably
darn.
was, and I'm way over dissecting it as a car guy. It just hit me. I was like,
That's
doesn't
what we
seem
do
right
here,
all of a
man.
sudden.
I was gonna say
I
that's
know.
the name of the show, right?
I think we should. I
know,
think we
it
should
just
change
hit
our
me.
name to Over Dissect That Film.
Yeah.
You know, the pisser is before they could prove whether that actually was accurate or not, it got destroyed by the mummies stomping on the car.
Yeah.
So we'll never know. We'll never
Oh,
know.
my car.
His brand new car.
See,
Oh,
I feel
man.
like that would work better, or if they dropped their key on the and
Yeah.
it went somewhere,
Like
and they
down a
couldn't find
drain?
it, like down a drain or something. Like, don't break your key.
That's the worst.
No, instead they're gonna
Oh,
drive
they're-
this double decker through a fucking bridge, and I love that
Yeah.
Rick hits the ground, and that's
Yep.
when it gets squished, like you were saying.
So
Some fun shotgun fight
Oh,
fighting,
yeah.
like gun
Oh,
the
yeah.
hand to
stuff in
hand,
those
the hand to
things,
hand
too.
fighting. I love the one where he pokes the eyes out and he's like, ah!
Oh, the Stooges shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Evie picking up the shotgun and just blasting that mummy. I'm like, Evie's a badass, man.
It's
He's great.
probably the best action sequence in the movie, like confined action sequence. Like there's a couple
Mhm.
other good ones, but that's like probably the best like one in a 5 minute chunk.
You got that awesome new Alan Silvestri score just blasting in the background while it's happening. It's great. Alex gets taken by the anti-magi. That's just what they're going to be called for the rest of this movie because I don't know what the hell they are.
Oh yeah, in a stupid scene too, where he's just like, "Yeah, we
Oh,
did
yeah.
it, guys. We did it." Walks to the end of the bus, gets grabbed. It's like, all right.
And then Rick
Well, they're
chases
too
him on
busy like
foot.
sucking face. This is the second time. They're a pair of lusties, and like all they're doing
Hey, man,
is like
what's the
sucking
prob-
face.
What's
and
the
then
problem?
there's not. I'm just saying you got to pay attention to your fucking kid, dude. I know
The
you
first time they couldn't hear him grunting and groaning,
I know.
I'm like, dude, do you need to go to the bathroom? Like,
bath?
sounds
Yeah.
like you're trying to take a shit.
Alex, what are you
like-
doing? Shut your pants down, there, son. We got a bathroom for that now.
We got 7 of them.
They couldn't hear that.
We
You don't need
couldn't.
to
We
poop in
couldn't.
the sand no more.
It's like they didn't touch each other during any dig. Like, is that like a rule? Like, we can't on the dig. That's just the rule. When we get home, we're all the clothes are coming
Professional.
off. Yeah,
We're not married at
We
the
can't-
dig site.
We can't.
yeah.
We can't desecrate this grave.
I just don't think nobody wants. I mean, and rightfully so. I just don't think nobody wants to get sand in any flaps.
Yeah.
Just saying that.
I mean, we've worked together. We're not married when we work together.
No,
He made me clean a bathroom while I was 8 months pregnant.
damn right.
What a guy.
That's true
I
love.
drive a hard bargain, baby. That's why I make it happen.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody safe.
Oh man. Did you ever think you wanted to watch a woman make out with a mummy? I know I didn't, but we get that when we get.
We get an even longer scene of it in this as opposed to the first one.
Well, yeah, because you get the one where like she gets put back in time where it's actually Arnold Vosloo fully formed, and they're making out, and then it goes back to this time where he's a mummy, and so yeah, it's interesting.
It's like Uncle Frank from Hellraiser. I mean, that's actually grosser because the guy's actually not just CG, but similar kind of vibe.
So yeah, they got to go to Karnak. That's kind of like the next place they got to go because Alex had mentioned it because of all the places that he had seen when he put on the bracelet, and so they got to get a magic carpet.
This was kind of funny.
They don't sing a whole.
But
new
before
album.
we meet our magic carpet
don't.
guy, Alex gets to meet the bad guy crew. So he meets Noxinamoon incarnate, and she's really nice, but she's also terrifying. And she's like, "Yeah, well, unlike your mother, I can put venomous snakes in your bed while you are sleeping." And I'm like, "All right."
Kisses him on the cheek.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, because he's like, "Oh, I don't listen to my parents. Why would I listen to you?" And that's the threat
Yeah.
she gives him. And he's like, "Oh, okay."
yeah, because she tells him to behave, and he's like, "I don't behave for my parents."
I like how her plan is to
Yeah.
threaten him with venomous snakes and sexual assault. Like, wow, that's
Yeah.
really weird, lady. That's
Because
how
she
that
kisses him
escalated.
like very close, and I'm like, "Oh, ma'am."
Very much a do not want.
And they just tie him up with this chain and this fucking claymore, like a claymore into the ground with a chain. It's like, okay, I guess that would work.
So they sent those buffoons from earlier in the movie to go get that chest that we saw in the first one because we need that to be a piece of this.
Why?
Because
well,
that's the only that is like the unlock. That's how
The
Imhotep
power
is
unlock.
able to get he can't just go around sucking people's lives. It's got to be a reason behind it. So somebody's got to open the box.
Listen, I don't think any lady of the night needs to crack a chest for her to make money for the evening. I'm just saying.
They do make a point about them cracking that chest open specifically, though, because, like, I forget if it's the next scene or not, but, like, when they're on the train and they actually, like, have this fucking thing, it's like...
No, that's what I'm saying. They bring it in because that's what that was their next mission that they sent those guys on, was to go get that.
I love how she's like, yeah, we'll pay you the extra $5,000. Follow me. And they bring him to Imhotep, and that's the scene where he speaks in English to the son. But the more important thing is that he's now there going to suck their souls out, but he can't do it because it's against the rules unless they crack that seal, because that's how it works. Seriously, I know, Dan, like you're reacting that way, but he should just be able to do it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
They're trying to follow that weird rule, but then they just kind of don't follow a bunch of other rules they set up. But I do kind of like it where, like, the Goonie guy kind of rushes back to the door and she's like, open the chest. That's what he wants. And this dope opens it instantly.
Well, man, they made this guy way too dumb. Like,
you
can make a character dumb, but they made this guy way too dumb. Earlier, when they failed to get the first thing and they're at the dig getting Imhotep, when they pull their guns and he has the gun pointed to the back of his partner's head and the dude's got to push it.
Yeah.
Are you serious, bro? Is he cross-eyed? Like, does he have a sight problem? Like, what's happening here?
We also get the payoff on the guy that keeps saying everything's cursed, because that's before they the chest is, but before that, when they're arguing about the pay, he's like, you say this is cursed, that's cursed, everything's cursed, and then of course he's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
doesn't matter.
Yeah, because they get locked in the room and Imhotep attacks, but of course he can't do anything, so he scares the shit out of the dumb guy to the point where she's like, he wants you to open the chest, and he's just like, okay. Just opens it.
Yeah.
I like how he's the one that opens it, but automatically the other two get roped in.
Because they're involved.
Like, automatically.
Yeah.
That's how it worked the last time, because it was only two of them that actually opened the chest in the first one. But because they were part of a group or they were there when it happened, that's why Benny wasn't cursed, because he left. He was like, fuck that chest cursed.
Yeah.
They're also speed lining it a little bit just to kind of get to the next part of the movie. Like, all right, you get the gist. This is what's happening. Let's move on.
Yeah, we don't want you got the point of how he becomes back to his full human form. So we're gonna make this go by real quick.
He also, again, like we're joking about, gets his powers back because they're just like, well, he's not immortal, but now he can turn back into sand or something, I guess. Manipulate the environment like Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Not enough cats in this movie, mind you.
There's zero cats. Zero cats.
They should have had one on lockdown. Just keep one in the back.
It's in a bag.
It would work.
But the thing is I appreciate that they were like, hey, remember that, in all the soul sucking scenes or life sucking scenes that you don't actually see it happening. It's all done in shadow and all that. We're gonna actually show you him sucking the life out of somebody, and it just didn't look very good.
I like that they only show for a couple seconds.
They only showed the one time. So.
I kind of like the shadows, the way they did that.
The
in
shadow
first
one
movie.
is great. The one with the one guy who gets like hovered up in the air and he's just like screaming, and then he just and then his body falls to the ground. Yep. That was my favorite.
I mean, you could sit here all day and talk about the editing too of that first film. There's actually pretty good editing tricks in this film where they kind of hide
same editor. So
okay.
Yeah.
Because there's like a scene where Imhotep gets his arm cut off at one point, and you don't actually see it get cut, but the arm falls. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That was actually kind of clever.
Where he picks it up and he like screws it back on.
Yeah, like that kind of shit's cool. But yeah, here it's just like, I guess they just wanted to try to see how it would look, and that's like the biggest sin in this movie is just they only had so much, I guess, in their CGI budget. And they had to strew it across a 2-hour movie, 2-hour and 10-minute movie. And it was like, where do we really put it where it really counts? And where can we just kind of skate around the edges? And this is one of those scenes where they're skating around the edges. This guy just looks like he has flower petals coming off of him. It's supposed to be his skin and his viscera, but it just looks shitty.
I think the worst of that whole thing is when Imhotep turns towards the camera after he sucks his life out. I was like, that is not a good shot.
No.
Because at least in that first one, I don't know, it just, for some reason, shots just looked better. Like visual effect shots looked better, especially when he was still not fully human. Yeah, he still had parts of him being Mummy, but like this one was like, oh, they went full CG, and it just did not look great.
I'm gonna throw this out there, and I know we made fun of the movie a little bit when we covered it a while back, but I thought Mr. Hyde and Cock Ripper looked a lot better than fucking Arnold Vosloo.
Oh, and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
We didn't really get
way better.
We didn't really get to like the biggest like bad CGI scenes. There's like one in particular that comes to mind coming up pretty soon. But like I actually just for the first time we watched Matrix 2 and 3 because I never like got around to it. Just like I love Matrix, but I just always heard negative things. I'm like, fuck it, I'll watch it. So I'm like, I actually thought Matrix 3 was pretty good. I have some issues with that story of that film, but I was like, oh, this is pretty good. But 2, I was like, man, the CGI, it made me think of this film, actually, where it's just like, the CGI in that first one's great in the first Mummy and the first Matrix. And then the sequel, it's like, this movie did really good. Why was it the CG at least as good? Like, Matrix Reloaded, holy shit, some of those scenes are like a PS3 game. Like, I don't think...
The courtyard fight scene in Matrix Reloaded is one of the worst.
That was horrible.
If you want to know my thoughts on the entire Matrix trilogy, I reviewed all 3 of them with Wyatt from Cinema Trip Reviews, so you can go check out my guest spots over there talking about the entire trilogy. Whew, boy, we loved that first one, but boy, it was a lot to talk about with 2 and 3.
I'll have to check that out. But just to bring it back to Mummy, I just thought of that instantly after just watching it. It was like the drop off in quality. It's like, I know you fired the number off earlier and it sounds like a lot of money was spent, but I just wonder about that scene that's coming up with this. It's basically everything in this next section is just like they were like spend the least amount of money as possible for the middle of the film.
I just don't know if it was money. I wonder if it was time.
You did say that to the crunch. It's a shame. Give this movie 6 more months.
Especially when you have ILM on board to do your effects.
Yeah.
Like, yikes. I mean, we have to say that ILM did do the effects for Spawn as well, so there were bad. ILM hasn't been perfect, okay?
They're not infallible.
Yeah.
Well, so VHS heads.
Our magic carpet guy.
I thought this was fucking Old Dirty Bastard at first. I was like, is this ODB? No, it's not. But for a second there, I thought it was this eye patch motherfucker who's just wearing an eye patch as like a fashion statement.
Yeah. I just love when he rips it off his face. Yeah. But he got shot in the ass. He's not a fan of Rick because his ass hurt. And I love how he brings up a thing about Rick going off with some belly dancer girl, and it was like way before he met Evie, and Evie's like, "Oh, a belly dancer girl," and he's all like, "Oh, I can explain." It's like, you guys weren't together. Who gives a shit what the fuck he was doing?
They have to put that trope in there, even though it goes literally nowhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't. Nothing happens with it. It's fine.
No, really nothing.
In there just because, and it's like, I don't know, I thought Evie was like kind of a pretty nuanced character. I don't know why we need this weird female jealousy thing that goes nowhere, but okay.
Yeah.
To be honest though, the way that she kind of plays off the whole thing, it's kind of like, oh, like, not like being serious, kind of just like poking fun at him.
Ball breaker a little bit.
Yeah, instead of it being jealous. Yeah.
That is true.
But, we meet Horace, Ardeth's hawk or falcon.
Mm-hmm.
And we fly away in his dirigible or his balloon.
Okay. This is when the wheels fucking came off, quite literally. Why wasn't this just a boat? Why did they feel the need to have a goddamn airship in this movie? Like, I get it's The Mummy Returns, but I guess I just completely forgot that this happened. And for the next like half hour of this movie, every time they cut back to this fucking boat, I'm like, why are we still doing this? Like, what the fuck? Why are we like most of this movie's in this flying ship and it's just like shot on this horrible green screen? I'm like wondering, like, are the actors even in the same fucking room? Are we still watching the goddamn Mummy Returns? What is even happening right now? Well, Evie's having flashbacks to her former life that also makes no sense.
We're watching the newest rendition of Final Fantasy.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Oh my god.
He's our Sid.
Right. No, exactly. A Sid. He usually had the airship in like probably half the games. I couldn't believe this shit. This was a blind. I've seen this movie many times. I don't know why I forgot about this. Maybe because I hated it so much. There's something to be said about a flying ship on a desert. It could be really fucking cool. It's just First of all, the CGI looks horrible. And second of all, they shoot this thing out of like fucking wind, sand, water multiple times. The same shitty little like blimp flies by. I don't know, man. And then they come into the oasis at one point. It's a little further than this, but it's like when they show that, it's supposed to be this beautiful, magnificent view. And it's like, this looks like Monster Hunter for fucking PS2. Like, I'm watching the 4K rental of this. I'm like, this just looks bad.
Yeah, I watched
everything with this didgeridoo, whatever the fuck the ritual.
Oh man,
is horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It sounds like bees.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
But yeah, Rick pretty much pays Izzy off with the stick that Jonathan's been carrying around the whole time. So we get that whole little conflict, which again leads to nothing. Evie's sad because her son's missing. And then we cut back to Alex, and he's hanging out with his good friend Lochna, and he's doing the whole "Are we there yet?" and driving him crazy to the point where he attempts to stab him. And he's like, "Wow!"
he's like, "Great shot." Yeah, I missed.
But this whole thing, I actually love the just banter between these two characters, like between Alex and Lochna. The whole like, I really want to kill you, but I can't. And and Alex is just fucking with him the whole time. Like the whole thing, he brings him to the bathroom and he's just like, I can't go when someone's watching me. And then he escapes out of the toilet. And I'm like, how?
Of course, though. Like, come on. I mean, I get that he doesn't know he's in a movie, but like, just don't leave the room, stupid. How did he not get killed for that decision?
How did he not hear anything that was happening in that bathroom?
Wow.
He's going to the bathroom real hard.
Also,
really hard.
Taking the Browns to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he is.
They show this kid running away into the ruins they just happen to need to be at anyway, so it somehow weirdly works out for them. But like that train's moving what, like 100 miles an hour? You're telling me he dropped to the ground from that hole and he's running? Like, I don't fucking think so.
How the fuck did he remove the toilet? Was the wood that bad? And just Herculean strength just rips the toilet out.
I mean, that looked pretty rotted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just don't
They
believe
didn't
it,
have
man.
the
This
wax,
small kid's
they
gonna
don't
be.
have wax rings on there.
There's no wax rings. I'm just saying.
I mean,
I just don't like. This is the 30s. This shit's probably like fucking made of like lead.
Dan is 100% right, but again, what did I just say? He's also fleeing from a moving train. Like the train didn't. Although he does pull the lever. I'm sorry, he does do that. So maybe it stopped before he.
He did pull the train stop.
That's right.
So ignore that rant.
Yeah, it's okay. We both complained about it, but it's still ridiculous.
They're fucking opening fire on this kid that they need alive to just machine gun fire right on his heels.
As soon as he pulls that lever and the train starts to stop, wouldn't the guy just bust back into the bathroom and be like,
right,
you're fucking done. Let's go.
No, but he doesn't.
Yeah, not to mention, apparently nobody else got the memo. They needed him alive. It's like anyone that runs from the train, gun them down immediately.
Two of them together. Like,
Imhotep's
I didn't know. Nobody briefed me on this.
Imhotep's like, fucking morons. And then he's like, oh, this is where we need to be.
Yeah, this is
such terrible shots.
And this is back to what Sean was saying earlier about a Nox to the Moon body double woman, whatever the fuck she is.
Yeah. This whole war drop.
Ever since he's come back to life, she's useless. She doesn't do shit. She just hangs on his arm like, I'll go with it anywhere you want. Yeah, before she was a badass freaking throwing snakes at people. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
the snake dart lady.
Well, that's also like because Evie in this time period when they're on the blimp, whatever, has that flashback where she now is like remembering, oh, I was Nefertari because we just go with the most obvious name possible, and she was the princess of the fucking pharaoh.
She was the daughter of Seti.
And she's battling the other woman, which was actually kind of a cool fight scene. But again, like, why is this even happening? How is she the reincarnation of that other woman, but also the descendant of the priestess or of the princess? I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough about reincarnation, but I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of movies. I've played a lot of video games that talk about reincarnation. This is an interesting spin on it.
So Rachel Weisz and Patricia Velasquez actually trained to do this fight scene. So they do this all themselves. There's no body doubles or stunt doubles or anything. So
it's impressive.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Good for them. Good for them.
But yeah, we get to see their fight together. We get to see the fact that Nox on the Moon is goo goo eyes for Imhotep. We see Nefertiri see the beginning of The Mummy? Because you get that whole scene redone again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying Nefertari. That's from One Piece. I'm sorry. That's just
Nefertiti.
habit.
No, it's Nefertiri.
Yeah, I'm saying
Is it?
wrong.
It's Nefertiri.
Because in One Piece, there's a character, Vivi Nefertari, which is just a play on Nefertiti, and I'm just used to saying it for a character that's been around for 30 years now, so that's totally my bad. I just caught myself. Anyway.
No, I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it. Like, I was like, no, I don't know what he's talking about. Now you said it.
So Stephen Sommers was going to use Nefertiti as the name, but he thought that there were going to be some jokes about the fact that there is TT at the end of the name. So he changed it to a different name, which was she was an actual princess.
Yeah.
To the pharaoh.
Yes,
but,
that's what I heard.
But a Nox on the Moon, when she does talk to her, she does say Nefertiti one time.
Okay.
So I don't know if it just was a shot that was like, it's good enough. Who cares if you fucked up the name? You just forgot a word.
I would be more concerned about being worried about, like, yo, you have like a non-Egyptian actress, a non-Middle Eastern actress, and you're saying she's the ancestor Nefertiti or Nefertari, whatever the fuck it is. Like, I would have been more concerned about that. But again, maybe that was less of an issue in 2001 for whatever reason. Yeah. And again, plot reason, I still may be overthinking that, but come on, like, you presented this major plot point in the first one, and now you're just kind of like, well, don't overthink that. This is a little different, but kind of the same thing.
I guess you could see it as whitewashing to a degree, but they do mention in the first one that her mother was Egyptian.
They do. I'm just saying, if he had any concerns, that should have been his concern, not what he was concerned about.
Right. So Alex then is shown leaving breadcrumbs throughout the rest of his journey with Imhotep. Every time they go to a different location, he makes like a sandcastle of the next location, and we get a whole montage of that going on. We also see the Magi army moving, and I'm like, cool. Do we need to see this for like 20 seconds? She could be like, they're moving, guys. All right. Move on. And then we always got to see Horus getting flown off. You see that like 25 times.
That's the only reason why that's important, is because the one guy notices the bird the one time.
Right, yeah.
And then when Ardeth, like when they finally crash land, and in a minute when we get to it, he sends off that final message and we get the end of Horus's story.
No.
Yep.
No. This is what
not
we
as sad
possibly
as
get.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. What were you going to say?
Not as sad as Hedwig's demise, but still very sad.
No!
Why do you have to bring that up?
No. For Hedwig.
My heart. For Hedwig.
Drop your F's in the chat, guys.
If you guys are watching the premiere.
Yeah, there you go.
So we get listen, the last scene of this movie definitely is got some visual effects that I'm like, yeah, it's not great. This is my least favorite visual effects shot of this entire movie, and that is the water wall.
That's what I was alluding to earlier.
Oh my god, this is. I know that visual effects houses have had a hard time with water effects for a long time. So in 2000,
Terminator 2 was in 1991. What are you talking about?
But I guess water effects is still a very difficult thing to master.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
But
fuck the abyss. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. I realize
no, you're good. But so the sand wall in the first one, I thought was fantastic. I thought it was done really well. It looked really good.
Holds
to
up.
do it with water though, and then have the water just look atrocious. This looked terrible.
His face looks way better in that first one.
Goodness. And even the water before he even makes the wall, like as he's walking into the river, it's CG water. And I'm like, that doesn't even look good. Like, what, you couldn't have at least shown it being real water?
His powers are also inconsistent because, like, in the first one, everything is sand controlled, like, which is kind of cool. Like, everything he does is because he can control sand. Like, he goes to like the keyhole. At one point, he turns into sand monster, controls sand. That's what he does. He never controls water. Like, I guess you could argue he's like sucking a water out of people on some level. Again, I'll make another One Piece reference. There's a character, Sir Crocodile, whose powers are sand, and that's what he does. So it kind of makes me think of that too. Just as another aside on One Piece piece. But it's
Make
like
him laugh like crocodile.
yeah, exactly. But it's like
Japanese one. So anyway, go ahead.
we could talk about that on another podcast one day, maybe.
Yeah.
But my point being is in this one, it's just like fuck it. He's just magic. He's just magic. Don't overthink it. It has nothing to do with sand. He could just make water do these things. It's like the fucking Riders of Rohan coming in with this fucking face coming, and it's just like they easily avoid it. Like they barely do it. All of a sudden, this fucking blimp has a turbo on it. What?
Right?
We got the coupe de vent, man. I don't know. I guess they need something to get out of there. But like the first movie, it's also like a total rehash of that scene from the first movie. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but you have that quick scene with that Winston character that's like in any other film would feel like such a throwaway, but it's like this succinct like 5 or 10 minute stretch. We're like, you know what? I like Winston. Oh man, Winston saved the day. Oh man, goodbye, Winston. Have your Viking funeral as you sink into the sand. Yeah, salute the man. Yep. This is just like Izzy's like, oh, we're out of control. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh, we're gonna crash. Oh, we crashed. No one's hurt.
Well, I mean, the whole thing where they think they escaped the water wall, and then they get to a certain point where it just dies, and then the water wall comes back, and he's like, well, that isn't good.
I kind of actually like that, but the rest of it is so bad, you just like don't even care at that point.
I mean, we could also talk about the fact, how the fuck did this man rebuild this thing that was in pieces everywhere in a few hours? Because how long was it since they crashed and then to the end of the movie? It can't be that long.
He also the joke, how am I going to find gasoline somewhere? I guess he just cut into a tree and found some, started pouring out. Like
oh my God, it's that gasoline tree people have been talking about. It's crazy.
He's got another one set aside like they do in the cooking shows. Like, oh, we made this earlier.
Yeah, a whole other deristable.
Yes. We put this in for 400 degrees and holy shit, it's already made.
I do wonder if they ever wrote about this, Stephen Sommers or anybody involved in the film, but I feel like they had a lot of like 90% of this movie figured out, or like 80%, let's just say, and then they didn't know how to get from point A to point B, so they came up with this fucking flying machine. And then they're like, well, how do they go home? Because they came home. They got there on it.
Gotta go.
I guess he fixes it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's not quite a plot hole. It's just a strange thing that they decided was a very important plot hole or plot point.
So they find Cher.
Portal.
Yeah, right.
So they find Cher. They are traveling through the jungles. Horace gets killed.
They shoot him down. Yeah, that's sad.
Our death is sad, and and Rick convinces him to stay with the group. The other group finds like soldiers from the past that have died in the jungles. You got people who were from like armies from like thousands of years ago, and then you have some that were killed not even that long ago, like late 1800s or something like that. And so it's like, oh shit, what's going on here?
It's raptors, guys.
It has to.
That's exactly what it's in my notes. I said jungle pygmy attack, the Lost World callback.
Like, oh man,
yeah, well, not as good as that.
No, it's not. But it's
don't go into the long grass.
Yeah, don't go into it's. Fuck.
That clip's going in here again. I don't care.
This is Imhotep's bag.
I feel like that was one of the things we talked about when we saw this film when it came out. So I wonder if this was the discourse at the time. I didn't really follow movie discourse as much when this came out, but that was something all my friends were talking about. Like, oh, the fucking raptor scene, right? And it's like, there's other problems. Lost World has problems, don't get me wrong, but that is one of the most famous scenes in that movie. And it's like, bro, like, I get that you try to put your own spin on it with the pygmy mummies, which I actually like a lot. It feels a lot like Diablo.
Yes. Holy shit. Diablo 2?
Yeah, I mean, those are more kind of like the Zuni doll from Trilogy of Terror, which we just did an episode of Movie Dumpster of both films. But that kind of monster that you see in like a lot of forest or rainforest kind of environments in RPGs. So I think it's cool. It's just they actually spent some money on these things, so I think that's why they look so good. Especially if there's like a close up of one like in a wall that someone gets real close up to. But it's just
that's the first one you see. Yeah.
It's a little too. It's too little, too late. No pun intended, because these are little creatures. But I guess it's kind of a cool scene as you just start to see some of these guys drop to the ground, disappear in the tall brush, if you will.
I've always enjoyed this scene. I've always enjoyed this whole sequence. I like the Pygmy Man attack. I like the transition from the practical to the CG, and I think they're probably one of the best looking CG things in this movie, to be honest.
yeah.
I think they look better than Imhotep throughout this entire thing. I do like the fact that we get like the whole fight with the pygmy men, and like there's like gags going on. You got the guys that fall into the quicksand and they just like run over their heads, pushing them farther down. Then you got the douchebag dude who's like the head of it. He's like, you two must sacrifice yourselves for me. And they're just like, what?
He weirdly survives though. He kind of just books it out of there.
Yep. And but then you have our death in a Nook there, or whatever the hell that guy's name is, fight during this whole thing, and that's when he gets killed, which is satisfying.
He fucks him up, man. Like I kind of wish he got some dismemberment, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that PG-13. You probably had to. They didn't even. I don't even think they showed him bleeding. I think it was just like you assumed. Yeah, you heard the slices.
It might, he just gets sliced. I think the only dismemberment you get is if it's a mummy, because then they can reattach the limb.
Right. So we then have them running through the woods or running through the jungle, and then we get the whole gag where the pygmy people are chasing after him, and Rick lights the dynamite on the other side of the log and throws it, and one of them catches it like, ah! And it blows up, and all I can think of is King Kong.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say King.
This is
that's
100%
gotta
a King
be
Kong throwback, but also I guess it's a Doctor Strangelove callback, because the one of them is riding the log like the Rocket.
I missed that.
In that, I actually was. SpongeBob was on the TV today. I have young children.
Oh,
so the SpongeBob a SpongeBob episode was on, and there was actually a shot where it was a plankton character. It wasn't Plankton, but it was a plankton ancestor riding a potato like the Rocket from Doctor Strangelove in that same shot where he's like, "Yeehaw!" I'm like,
Slim Pickens shot.
SpongeBob, man.
Oh, it's nothing safe.
So you find out that there's this whole thing where if Alex doesn't make it to the pyramid before the sun rises on the 7th day or whatever, he's gonna die. So, or the bracelet's going to suck the life out of him. So, of course, we get the whole dramatic scene where Rick is carrying Alex and the sun is behind him. It's like, is the bracelet draining his life force? Because he's like running through the jungle and he's like, the bracelet. And he's got to pick him up and he's got to run with him. And then they do the epic jump. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's kind of a good little action sequence, but it does also kind of feel like manufactured drama at this point. It's like, we're so close. We really need to have this mad dash. But they do it. And he's like, oh, you're a great dad. He's like, yeah, I try.
It's not so hard. It's not so easy.
I'm surprised this scene did not play out differently. Like, I was expecting him to get in and be like, Alex not be responsible. Like, Alex, wake up, and he'll do the I'm fine, Dad, like that thing, that, or I would have liked to have just Rick just like shot put his child into the opening of it, like, we gotta get him there, and just throws it.
Well, the thing is, we thought that maybe the son might die or BrendanFraser might die, but it was all just to set up the wife getting stabbed. Like in the next scene, it's like, oh, well, someone I guess must die, but just don't think about those books we introduced in the last film that are definitely not important at all in this movie. Don't think about that.
Was Imhotep and Anoxidamune just chilling, like behind that pillar there? They were just waiting. Time, go.
This pans out.
Also, at this point, she's been transformed into the original.
Oh, yes.
She's got the soul replaced. Like, again, that other woman's just okay with having her whole soul removed. And
she's like, okay, see you later, Karen. Like, you're now Anoxidamune.
Enjoy.
Dude,
you gotta do the face, that face thing, like John Travolta in Face Off. Like,
oh yeah.
I like how quick she's. And now, don't get me wrong. I see where she gets stabbed, and you could bleed it out. She's just like, bleh. She's like a fucking Tonberry from Final Fantasy's 9,999 falls over. Like, oh shit. And then like realistically, you would bleed out from that because you're hitting your intestines and stuff that. Shit. Like, it's just like, go on without me. And like in other movies, like there's people get like riddled with holes and they're fucking totally fine. I'm just gonna assume it was a poison dagger.
It could have been. She had that. I guarantee she was carrying that asp in her pocket.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Put the fang on it. I just feel like
Named
this
it
is
Phil.
Yeah. It's not even like a bad twist. It feels like if this was in the first movie, it might be a little bit more shocking, but it's like, okay, we're at the end of the second film where you've been talking about resurrecting and de-resurrecting people for now going on 4 hours if you count the runtime. I don't know. To me, it just felt like kind of like, all right, just like Dragon Ball, they're going to bring her back.
Yes.
It's just a matter of how long. The tension is how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where it moves to, but he knows she's going to come back.
BrendanFraser puts on a performance though of like being a distraught, like upset person who just lost their life.
Yeah,
like
he should be upset. I'm saying as an audience member,
he does a great job at portraying that. So
yeah,
but yeah, we also get like, speaking of that, the fact that they're just like constantly reminding you that there's 2 books, one because literally
the Book of Life and the Book of the
Nook guy, he's like, oh, a book that brings people, a book that brings life, and a book that brings death. I'm like, yes, we know. We were there in the first one.
We
don't need a reminder.
Thank you for the note.
Maybe one reminder, not 5, 6, 7.
I like how you never see the Book of Amun-Ra again. Like you see it like there in the beginning, and then it's like, no, fuck it, the Black Book.
Well, they weren't carrying both around, but you're right. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because the Gold Book was only used to control the army mummies, and then also to take his powers away.
Right. Well,
I just wish I think it'd be funnier if like Evie's dying, and then like, oh fuck, what's the kids? Alexander walks up, like, no, I found this, I could save her, and he pulls out a card. It's Monster Reborn from Yu-Gi-Oh.
He puts it on her arm and just glows.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it works.
They also do have this gag here, though, where it's like, oh man, how are we going to resurrect your mother? No one can read Egyptian as well as her. And her son's like, yeah, she taught me. I know exactly how to read it. And he's like, oh, Jonathan's like, okay, I guess this might work out.
It's a hey, remember this thing that we did in The Mummy? We're going to do it again because.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at first, the curator takes the bracelet. And Imhotep is made mortal because he enters into the tomb of the Scorpion King, and I guess the Scorpion King wants to fight him mortal, so it takes away his powers.
Even though the Scorpion King, as we find out, is this fucking monster now, not just a regular dude, but okay.
Right, exactly. The curator releases the army of Anubis by sticking his hand in a game that I wouldn't want to play.
A game? We call them glory holes around here, but carry on.
It is kind of like a saw trap, though. You're right, Parker.
Yeah, it is. Like, maybe he turned it the wrong way. Maybe it's like you put your arm in and you twist it left or right.
It's accepted.
You get the army.
It's like when you mini golf, you got to, you got that final game at the end where you can take points off your ball, and you don't get your ball back. But this is the thing where it's taking its ball back, but it said it's the Scorpion King bracelet.
What if that was like how glory holes work? What if you lost one ball every time you used the glory hole?
I mean, it's kind of like a glory hole because his hand comes out shriveled as fuck. It's like acid cum all over his arm.
I think it like rips the skin off. So it's like an actual skeleton hand that's like gooey. It's gross.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be rough.
I guess in the novelization of this movie, his hand is completely chopped off from the bracelet where the bracelet was found. Yeah.
I kind of
rather have my whole hand chopped off.
It's a law of equivalent exchange, baby. You get an army, I take your arm.
You would be better off, Angela. You're right with the arm just getting cut off because now you have this necrotic mass just on you.
I'd be literally like, "Hey, can you take care of this, please? This is awful."
My healthcare is not going to cover this.
Especially in 1933.
He does actually ask for help. He asked Imhotep, and Imhotep's like, "Why would I help you?
Why?" I love that.
It's like, what? What?
Who's Imhotep? My name's Greg. I work for the
yeah, right. But I love how Alex and Jonathan are trying to resurrect Evie while I can't remember her damn name. The evil woman. Anoxinamoon is like trying to kill them in the process. But meanwhile, Rick is just like, yeah, I gotta stop Imhotep. He's over there, but he doesn't realize Imhotep is about to do this one-on-one like life and death like battle against the Scorpion King, and like has literally summoned him with a gong, like the Rancor in Star Wars, and it's like. He's just like sneaking up on him, like this is gonna be an easy kill while this fucking scorpion monster's crawling down the side of a wall. It's kind of funny.
All I could think of at this point was the Gong Show. If any of you have
watched
it.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
That was great,
dude. I was thinking of son of a bitch. I was thinking of the episode of The Simpsons.
That was like that
trying to
time. I
remember.
thought your life goal was to go into the gong
Oh.
show, and you and Barney did it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
we got more gongs than the breakdancing robot that caught on fire.
Hey, R.I.P. to Richard Simmons. I don't know if he was the breakdancing robot, but he was a robot in The Simpsons that caught on
Yes, he
fire.
was. Oh my God, his ass is gonna blow.
Yeah, deleted scene, but
Yes.
no Richard Simmons in this scene. I'm sure Rick could have used his help against Scorpion King. Also, by the way, they've been carrying around this rod we've talked about a couple times. That is the Spear of Osiris. Just happens to be this thing that could kill the Scorpion King.
We're going to get to that in just a minute.
MacGuffin, if you will.
So they've got to find the Book of the Dead to bring back Evie because she can't die. The army of Anubis arises. We see like the shadow, the black shadow go across the desert, sink in. Things are about to happen. The Magi are all set up. They find the book. They find Imhotep. And Rick fights Imhotep. Alex then does what Jonathan does in the first movie by reading the passage to bring back his mother, but can't figure out that last symbol. What was the last symbol?
It's a bird or something.
Yeah, a metaphys.
Yeah.
It's the same one. Same exact one.
I could have done without that joke, especially like if they're playing up that he was taught by the mother. It's like if they wanted to get that joke in there, you could have played it differently. I don't know.
Yeah,
a little too close to home.
So Alex, so Alex brings back his mom. You don't get to see her. You just see like a glow. You're like, and then his eyes widen. Oh my God, Mom.
Jesus.
What if this is like Pet Cemetery?
Oh, that'd be great.
When he brings back his mom.
Well,
except for Rick and Evie are way better parents than those parents in Pet Cemetery. Those parents suck.
I just meant like when they come back.
Oh, it's like evil Evie.
Yeah, not
He's like goes after
Rick.
Rick. Yeah.
You have to wait for part 3 to see the consequences. You got to wait a couple years.
Rick just put her down. That's why she wasn't in the third movie.
Oh shit, is she not? I didn't realize that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the actress Evie is in the third one, but it's not Rachel Weisz.
Oh man, Dark Knight Rises situation. Or Dark Knight. I should say.
Yeah. So the Scorpion King is awoken, and he looks interesting. He looks like a scorpion. So let's talk about why the Scorpion King looks the way he does. So John Benton Jr. was on the Visual Effects Reacts on Corridor Crew and talked about the fact that when they, like for instance, when they would do effects for Imhotep before he was fully a human, they were able to scan Arnold Vosloo and be able to get him to look like Arnold Vosloo even when CG was being used. They didn't get that luxury with Dwayne Johnson because he was only there for 3 days, and it was for that opening scene. So they couldn't get a scan of The Rock for references for the Scorpion King. So they kind of just had to do reference points from like random pictures. Like they had to just kind of take I think they even took like a picture of him that they or a shot of him from the beginning of the movie to kind of figure it out. And this was done like last minute. Like they did their final edits for this shot 8 days before the movie premiered.
Oh,
they knew what they had. They put that down to the fucking wire because they're like, there's no way we're fixing this time slot. Let's just try to make some movie magic. They didn't quite land it, guys. They tried.
So
I just assumed they went to Madame Tussauds Max Museum and
scan that in.
Because he was mentioning, he's like, anytime you do a CG caricature of somebody, you usually get scans of whatever actor is going to be that character, so that you kind of have a reference and you can build around it. Corridor Crew actually went back and did a whole episode where they took the original Scorpion King from this movie and actually redid that whole final shot and made it look more like The Rock and actually made it look a little bit visually better. The John Benton Jr. was actually super, super happy with it too. He actually really liked that they did that. So, that's why the Scorpion King looks the way he does. And I know people put it on the list of like worst visual effects of all time. Trust me, I've seen way worse than this. I don't think he looks great, but I've seen way worse. I understand it's a bigger budget movie, so maybe it's going to have more fingers pointed at it. But Listen,
Well-
I don't think the Scorpion King looks worse than that water effect from before, the water monster thing. So
You're right though. Like people focus on the Scorpion King, but there's worse. Even like the Anubis army, like it looks good in the beginning, but this like final battle sequence, like some shots it looks good, and others it's like, whoo, man, that looks rough. Like not to always reference video games, but like Dreamcast or PS, like I'll say PS3 level graphics, like graphics from like 10, 12 years ago, which is not what you want in your big. Again, this was a sequel to a movie that made a ton of money. It was a huge success. They made a fucking ride at Universal based off this movie.
Right.
It also like kind of brought back this idea of like maybe these monster movies could be a thing. And you know, Tom Cruise, you said you guys are going to get to that, so you'll learn soon enough how that worked out. But like it did kind of have this resurgence, just like I mentioned Matrix before. It's like you would think like the sequel would get more money than they know what to do with because it's a guaranteed success. So that's where I'm just sitting there scratching my head like, why was this rushed? They couldn't get The Rock in a fucking booth for one goddamn day. They couldn't explain to Vince McMahon that this movie's going to make an extra $50 million if we spend an extra fucking day in the booth with The Rock. Instead, that's the thing. Every article at the time, go back and look it up. It was the fucking horrible CGIs when everyone complained about it. It wasn't the story. I mean, I'm sure people complained about some of the repetitiveness, but it was mostly about The Rock CGI and the water face. Those were the two big fuck ups.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about it.
We're still talking about it. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of people out there who don't know the reason behind the shot, you know? And so to kind of clarify, it's like he even explains, he's like, it's not an excuse for it looking the way it does, but unfortunately there's a lot of things in our way and we just didn't have the time. And
that's a shame.
You know, unfortunately, this is just how certain things turn out. It sucks when it's a movie that almost had $100 million budget. And it's like, how is it like this? But then you look at like, you know, I mean, the studio could have been pressuring Sommers, you know, giving him an exact, like, we need to release it at this point.
True.
So yeah, a lot of factors in there. But yeah, we get the whole appearance of him. We get Imhotep bitching out. He runs away. Evie and Inoxinamoon fight for about 30 seconds. I went, well, that was anticlimactic, man. Like, I wish that fight went a little longer, but it was kind of like, ding, ding, ding. Okay, we're all both just going to run away now. We're going to go run towards our men.
Well, that does lead to kind of a great scene, but you're right.
Does.
It's like
it really
she headbutts her once. She's like, I learned some new shit. And then the other woman runs away.
Yeah. But we then see the curator coming out holding his hand. And then he gets taken by the Scorpion King and he's like, Imhotep, help me. And he's like, why? And it just gets torn to shreds.
Yeah. Into 4 pieces, just totally shredded.
Yeah. So the army of Anubis shows up, fight the Magi. The Magi win. So they're like, hooray! To be honest, the Anubis army looks good in this first battle scene. It's when they spawn 1 million more, and then they start running, and they don't look like they're actually running. They just look like they're skating across the sand. I'm like, ooh boy, this 4K, it's really pointing up some of these really iffy shots. But yeah.
Do we point out the fact that before, like, Rick, and if I missed this, I'm so sorry, but do we point out the fact that Imhotep had all of his metachlorians taken out of him?
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
I don't know
because the Scorpion King said, no, you're going to fight me as a mortal.
We did kind of gloss over it because that is also one of the other, like, I keep saying sins, you know, cinema sins. That is another one. The effect is fucking horrible when he gets the stuff pulled out of him. Dan, you're right. It's like, what is even happening? It's like when Sam is from Metroid loses her powers, but like graphics in that are better. Again, it's video games somehow looks better than this like bad like window. It's not in Windows 98, but that level of effect of just some smoking shit's coming. Oh, he lost his powers. Okay.
It sucks because you build it up like you're gonna have like these two super powered beings like fight each other, and I was like, I want to see that, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, that's definitely a big complaint for me, and to be honest, it was a big complaint for me in the first one. The fact is, like, you hype up Imhotep to be this like unstoppable beast, and then you just take his powers away, and you're like, because literally once he gets his powers taken away in the first one, he dies within 15 seconds. This one. It's like, yeah, I want to see powerful Imhotep fight the Scorpion King and have this really epic battle, and then Rick just kind of figures shit out and then kills them both, or kills the Scorpion King beforehand.
You just kind of said it though. Like it actually kind of makes sense that that's the route they went in the first one, because the second that he actually has the ability to use all those sand powers, he would just destroy Rick the second that he's focused on destroying Rick. So the fact that he loses powers and dies, it's like, well, it's a little unsatisfying, but it makes sense. This one, it's like, well, he doesn't have his powers, but now he has his powers, but now he doesn't again. Like it's not like then Rick just instantly kills him. Like he still kind of actually puts up a fight this time, but you're like, yeah, I would have just like let's see that fucking CGI face again. Knock this scorpion off the side into these people soul things. This Mortal Kombat river that's going around here.
Yeah,
it's a lot more fantastical, but also just they don't take advantage of that at all. Than the first one, I mean.
Yeah, this ending is just weird. Because we get the whole, like they fight the Scorpion King, and then we get a shot that's just baffling to me, and I guess it's even baffling to Stephen Sommers that it was even left in the movie, and that is the fact that they figure out how to use the spear because there's instructions on the fucking wall that shows you that this spear opens up into this larger thing, which then would kill the Scorpion King.
He had to have that tattoo so they could see, oh, that's it right there. So he's got the tattoo and he's got the thing.
But why would the temple that houses the Scorpion King have instructions on how to kill the Scorpion King? I don't understand this.
They should have showed that like at one of the earlier temples, and they should have just kept a note of that. But what are you gonna do?
So he figures it out. Jonathan finally opens it, gives it to, throws it. Imhotep catches it, then Imhotep throws it, and Rick catches it, and then ends up stabbing the Scorpion King. And I love Imhotep, who's just like right there. He's like, no!
He slides in from off scene. He's like, no, go, Imhotep. No!
Oh, yeah. Well, because Imhotep, if he kills the Scorpion King, that somehow gives him the power to control the Anubis army. But, like, if Rick does it, he's just going to be like, I guess mentally, like, destroy yourselves, or, like, it's just implied they'll go away, which they do.
Yeah, right at the last second. Gotta have that perfect timing.
That's like the scene again. I'll reference Lord of the Rings with the Ghost Army, where it's like that army fucks some shit up. This one, it's like you're right. It's like literally Ardeth's about to get his head cut off, and these things disappear. I kind of wish they had a little black smoke or something on them, just for add a little physical effects here. But no, they just disappear into a mist of CGI, and it's like, yay! You know what I mean? Like, give me some kind of physicality.
Yeah. It's like they got the black sand that like just wipes away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Disappointing.
So yeah, the Scorpion King's dead. Everything starts falling apart, and Rick and Imhotep are hanging for their lives on the side of this soul body chasm that's going on here. And
it's conveyor belt.
Evie,
Ohio.
There you go. There you go.
Evie goes to save Rick, but Anoximum's like, fuck you, Imhotep, I'm out of here. And Imhotep's like, well, my love of my life, who I literally have come back to life twice to be with, just gonna leave me high and dry. I'm just gonna see you later, and that's it.
He just goes and hangs out with Malbosia and Violator.
Yeah, exactly. I like the poetic nature of it, though. Like, say what you will about this film, and like the power of love, if you will, it is kind of a theme in both of these first two films. Yeah, exactly, right. The Back to the Future song, but yeah, like I love how Evie. It's not as simple as just running forward and grabbing him either. She's got to kind of dodge some falling debris, and it's just kind of intense sequence. And the other girl runs away and is instantly killed the same way Benny is in the first movie.
With another iffy effect shot of her falling into the beetle trap, and it was fine. But then she comes out of the beetles, and I was like, "Oh boy!"
They're trying to do too much again. They're really
the beetles in this movie just didn't look great.
No.
I think they looked way better in the first one.
They're trying to find their next Indiana Jones moment, guys.
Yeah,
they keep trying to pepper them throughout.
But I don't want to I don't want to attack them
sure
for all these shots. But I do want to point out they were rough. Some of them were rough.
They were.
So Imhotep's gone. See you later. I'm Cher
for real this time.
Somebody rolled a 6 and won Jumanji because everything is just being sucked back into the earth. It literally was like, this is Jumanji, guys, or the end of Crystal Skull. Where that pyramid gets sucked into the ground, but there's just no aliens in this one. And Izzy saves him because somehow he rebuilt the dirigible and found some gasoline, and he's flying around now. It's okay, guys.
Yeah,
we're here.
He found a pocket of bean gas.
And of course, the greedy bastard Jonathan grabs that diamond that's sitting on top of the pyramid.
Why not? You're right there.
Yep.
And sell it at a yard sale for $50.
I mean, I guess he could have just fallen and died, and that would have been pretty funny. I mean, it would have been funny he died, but just to be like, yep, that's what greed gets you. But no, it's like he gets this big ass diamond, and he's like caressing this thing.
Don't worry, this diamond plays into the next movie, kind of.
Of course it does.
And we say goodbye to Ardeth for the last time because he will not be in the next one.
Smart.
And I really wish he was, though, even though it would make zero sense. And yeah, that's it. That is The Mummy Returns. Wow, that was a lot, guys. But it's time to speak our final thoughts, and we're gonna start with Sean. Sean, after revisiting this movie, what did you think?
I can't sit here and say I actually hate this movie by any stretch. I do like it. But I'm probably not watching it again for a very long time. If I'm going to rewatch any of these movies, it's going to be the first one because it holds up great. Again, I still don't think it's like a solid 5 out of 5, but it's a very easy 4.5 out of 5. Good summer popcorn flick. This one's just like, again, I don't hate it while I'm watching it, even though I'm ripping on it a little during this review. It's just kind of very disappointing, and that's why I made those Matrix comparisons, because it's this thing that a lot of people were waiting for a couple of years. Like, well, when's the next Mummy coming out? That movie was a big hit is what I'm trying to say. It was a pop hit. It blew people away at the time, especially the effects, and then the sequel to come out years later, kind of just retreading territory. Not delivering on the same goods you did the first time, and then just kind of bringing some new ideas to the table, but just not very good ones. I don't know. There's a lot of things kind of at odds with this film. I think the script actually isn't that bad. I just think, again, there's a little too many jokes revisited. They're trying to fill some holes, like the Benny character's gone, so we'll have the son and Jonathan ramp up the comedy. They even have like a whole scene where Jonathan gets separated just as a gag. Some other guy gets killed. It's actually kind of funny.
Yeah,
but
it's that guy that was avoiding death throughout the entire movie.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, don't worry, there's sacred stones. He can't kill us. And then the piggy thing, like, freaking javelins him right in the chest, and he just looks at him like, my bad. See you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff in the movie that I do like, so that's why I can't say I hate it. Like, I think it's like maybe 2 out of 5 stars. Worth watching, especially if you're going down the line. 3, I haven't seen myself, but I haven't heard good things. So maybe because I just watched these, I might finally just say fuck it and watch it. But yeah, this is a major drop off after that first one. So I wouldn't be surprised if anybody just said, I'm done with The Mummy. I'm not sure where you guys rate your good and bad films, but if this was a movie dumpster movie, this would definitely be in the dumpster. The first one's pretty high on the shelf, but this one's down at the bottom with the grime and gunk.
We used to do a DTF seal of approval, but we haven't done it in a while. But we got to bring that
this
back.
one definitely doesn't get it though.
We just gotta say whether we like it or not.
Okay.
Yeah,
but no, that's fair.
Didn't like it. Did not like. I mean, again, I did say I liked it, but I guess if you're just saying, apples to oranges, it's hard to recommend this one unless you're just a fan of the first one. Again, it's not the worst thing ever. It's just kind of disappointing.
Dan?
Okay, cool, awesome. So I kind of felt slightly bad revisiting this movie because I always remember really liking it. Like, I was very high on the film. This is the one I watched several times in theaters, and I remember me and my buddy really talked about it a lot and kind of got us into like ancient Egyptian stuff and like learning about that. And kind of what Sean mentioned, it did not hold up as well as my nostalgia thought it would have. I don't by any means think it's a terrible movie. I think it's okay. And there's some things I like, some things I don't like, but at the end of it, like, if it was on, I'd probably watch it, but I don't know how much the way I'd go out of my way. I think the first one just holds up a lot of nostalgia for me. I think it just doesn't hold up to it. It's not as tight. It's not as concise. I don't like the characters as much, even though you still have the existing characters that have some of their charm and their comments and stuff, or their quips and whatnot. And I think some of that's lost. I think there's just too much going on at times. And you talked about, Parker, about the world expanding, like more of a globe-trotting adventure as opposed to this concise story. And again, I know I'm trying not to bring in the kid thing, and I don't think the kid was the worst. I'm very harsh on kid actors. It's kind of like yourself, Parker, but not factoring that in at all. I just like the only bad guy that I really liked is I liked the antithesis to whatever his fucking name is. I lost it. I'm over it.
Oh,
the hill guy,
the anti-Ardeth.
Yeah, the anti-Ardeth. There, I always fucking forget names. Yeah, that guy. I liked him. But the rest of the villains I didn't give two shits about. Like Imhotep's Imhotep, but even he felt like
he doesn't
lost
do anything. He really does not do much in this movie.
Yeah, like the Sesame Cake guy, the big black guy, like he's at least like kind of a constant presence in the film.
Yeah,
Imhotep's just he's there, but he doesn't do much until like the last act.
He's like, here's bad guy person. Look at him, and like liked him more in the first one. Like I don't know why. Maybe it was just Benny that helped carry him. I have no idea, but I'm not sure. But whatever, it's okay. It's all right.
I mean, I can't add any more than what you guys have already said. It hits kind of in the middle. It's not bad, not good. I feel like they could have stopped with the first one and been just fine.
It's mediocre.
Yes. I can't say it's just a movie because it's not that bad.
I definitely rewatching this movie definitely opened my eyes to a lot of the flaws that it has. I think, growing up with it, I just kind of ignored a lot of it and just had a blast with it. I still had fun watching this movie. I really did. I love the one-liners. I love BrendanFraser. I think he is just so fun to watch, and I really wish. I mean, we did get a third one with him, and he's. I mean, we're going to talk about it a lot next week, but he is kind of the only fun part of that movie.
Well, like him and Ardeth, like even Rachel Weisz is kind of in this, but like Ardeth and Rick kind of make this movie. If either of them are gone, this movie would suck.
Yeah. But, I still had fun, but it's one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know if I would rewatch this anytime soon. And I used to rewatch this all the time, but if I were to go back, I think I watched the Mummy at least once a year, maybe twice a year, because it's just such a fun movie. It's one of those movies I could just kind of throw on. My kids will watch. My kids like it. It's just it's a good movie all around, in my opinion. This one just is kind of a bloated mess. Just a lot of things going on. And it just doesn't know who it wants to make the bad guy. Like, it's like, yeah, we got Imhotep back, but is he really the bad guy? Like, what are we doing here?
Right. Speaking of Final Fantasy, it feels like Final Fantasy. It's like we have this other bad guy we mentioned once an hour ago. He's actually the main bad guy. Did you forget about him? I bet you forgot about him.
Yeah. And we have the Scorpion King, which you see in the beginning. We mentioned him through the whole movie. Doesn't do shit until the very end.
Right.
He's a MacGuffin. There's multiple in this film, but yeah, that's a great point, Parker. It's just like, what the fuck happened to the Arnold Vosloo? Like, he's so intimidating in that first film, and the CGI does him every favor. In this one, it's like the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's unfortunate because I used to love this movie, but I would have to bump it down to I like this movie. It's still enjoyable. It has its enjoyable moments, but it's definitely a movie that is just a little too long and just has a little bit too much going on. And the VFX definitely took a downward spiral compared to that first one, which was just visually just stunning for 1999. I mean, I understand this is 2001. Visual effects are still kind of in their infancy to a degree, but when your first movie has stellar effects and then you have a bigger budget and your effects kind of take a dive, it's like, okay, well, what happened here? Did you not give your guys enough time? Did you add too much to their plates? Like, what's going on here? Because there's something happened. Something went wrong. And it's unfortunate.
The Cult-Worthy Podcast. Join me, Antonio Palacios, each week as I guide you through a never-ending sea of obscure cinema and cult-worthy gems that deserve a rediscovery. Find me on all listening platforms and at thecultworthy.com. The Cult-Worthy Podcast. Join us.
Well, that's it for our thoughts. Now we're going to go over to social media and see what you all had to say about The Mummy Returns. And we got a few comments. We're going to start over on Twitter/X, where our first comment is from our good friend Darren Lundberg, who will be here next week to talk about The Mummy 3. He said,
You don't start early, motherfucker. We know you're
He pulled the short straw.
Yeah, by me asking him to be on. No, I asked him.
Oh, I meant the movie choice, not the show.
So he said, I actually like this much better than the first. if only because it never takes a breath to let me know how stupid it is. Also, Fraser and Weiss's chemistry really sells them as a loving, horny couple. And the Rock reveal never bothered me since all the FX are equally shitty.
All right.
The next one is from That Movie Page, who said, some dodgy CGI aside, it's fun, but it's bloated. And then at Jesse_King5590 says, I like it. It's dumb fun, except for when The Rock turned into a scorpion in the end. That aged horribly.
It never aged. It was bad then. It's bad now.
Yeah.
We got a couple over on Instagram. We have one from Big Optimist 33 who says, I like Mummy Returns a little less than the first because of the kid. Ooh. Still a great movie.
Bad.
Still a great movie, and BrendanFraser is amazing. And then
He's no Bob.
He's no Bob.
From House by the Cemetery. That's the ultimate worst kid in a movie.
There's so many I could name.
Bob's up there. And the kid from Child's Play 3 is also pretty bad.
Oh, Tyler.
Wait till we watch more Showa Gamera films, dude. You will learn to hate fucking kids. That's why they're bad for me. I fucking hate those kids.
Fair argument.
Bucket of Chum Podcast says, not as good as the first, but better than the third.
Well,
low bar.
Yeah, the bar's on the floor. And that's it for our comments. So thank you so much for everybody leaving your comments. Make sure to follow us over on all your favorite social media apps at Dissect That Film to leave us a comment on whatever movie we're going to be covering. Next week, I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times, but next week we're venturing to the third and final of the BrendanFraser Mummy trilogy with The Mummy, the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, where BrendanFraser fights Jet Li.
Gotta love those DVD covers where they just have the fucking poster in a box surrounded by red. What is going on? My Roger Rabbit 25th anniversary looks like that. I'm like, this is a classic. What is happening here?
And I got the Mummy too. I got them all.
But
why not complete the collection, right?
But yeah, that will be our next episode, and we have our good friend Darren Lundberg from Nostalgia Cast and Back to Bluey. He is joining us once again, and to be honest, our last two episodes have been close to 3 hours. That one could be close to 3 hours, and I'm looking.
No, Mr. Run the Clock will make it
I'm
happen,
looking
dude.
forward
You
to
know
it, guys. I'm looking forward to it. But before we go, Sean, thank you so much for being here and joining us once again. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
And we hope to have you and both you and Joe once again very, very soon. Godzilla month is coming up. We have Godzilla month coming up in November, and I know you guys are big Godzilla fans, so we definitely need to try to get you on an episode during that month. But yes, thank you. Thank you so much, man. We're big fans. We love you and Joe and all the stuff you do over at Movie Dumpster, and for you guys to come on our little dumb show is always it always warms our hearts.
I wish Joe could have been here. He's here in spirit again. Maybe he's still in the Amazon fighting those fucking anacondas, fighting off the corpse of John Voight. Winking at him. But yeah, if I did mention it earlier, but we're moviedumpsterpodcast.com. You can find us, or we're on YouTube at Movie Dumpster. We're pretty much at Movie Dumpster on most social media platforms. Check us out if you like movie reviews. If you like we didn't get too crude on this one. I don't know if that's an anomaly. I don't know. Maybe I was I only had my Mountain Dew. I didn't go into the full sugar depths of hell, the soda hell. But we get a little crude on there, but we also bring the trivia like you guys do, and we like to have fun, keep it a little conversational, and talk about the movies. Check us out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Movie Dumpster.
I will. All of the links to Movie Dumpster, like I said earlier in the episode, will be down in the description. Seriously, if you have not checked out Movie Dumpster, you need to start now because it's a podcast like no other. So check them out. Joe and Sean are just fantastic. Two very you guys are very different, and that's what's so great about like your opinions on the movies you talk about. And there's other shows that kind of have that same chemistry. You guys are familiar with Dustin and from the Flicks and Fred podcast. Him and Paul. The way that they go at it, like you guys, it's very. I love that. And I think that's what's great. What works, great about our show is we're all very different in our opinions or like what we've seen and what we haven't seen. So it's really seriously a great show you guys put on over there.
Thank you. I mean, that is what makes a good show, having differing opinions. I feel like, not that you couldn't have a good show just parroting each other, but I don't know, creates good conversation. So I think we're on the same page in that department. I've listened to many episodes of Dissect That Film, and there's always a good conversation going on with you guys too. So pat yourselves on the back a little too. I mean, seriously, we got to get you guys on the dumpster. Channel you into that TV. Maybe we can get Brett. I think you're a little closer to us in person. We gotta figure something out. One of these. I know it's not close.
I gotta talk. Listen,
closer.
If I tell my wife, hey, the movie dumpster guys want me to go to the dungeon, I gotta make a 4-hour trek to Pennsylvania.
You're gonna get on that dirigible. You have one in your backyard.
Izzy's gonna pick me up. He's like, let's go.
I would find a way to make it.
Yeah, you're all gonna get on the magic carpet ride.
That's my dream. That's my dream, to get to the movie dumpster dungeon. That'd be great. Yeah, thank you so much again for being here.
Yes,
it's always a blast. As for us, you can follow us, as I stated before, on all the social medias at Dissect That Film. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/Dissect That Film. For a single $1, you can get early access to episodes. You get access to polls. Even our free tiers, you can get access to polls that helps us select the final movies for the month, for whatever month we're doing. This is our Mummy month, so we had 3 movies. It's already chosen, but I'm not going to announce it until our Mummy 2017 episode, because
you son of a bitch.
I mean, you guys know what it is, but I'll tell Sean after the recording.
Right, tells after. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Breadcrumbs.
And sometimes I put outtakes and blooper reels and stuff like that on there. So for $1 you get all that fun stuff. But if you want to spend a little extra and get a little bit more, for $5 you get access to our monster show called The Monster Zone, which once a month we spin a wheel full of monster movies and we talk about them, and it's a lot of fun. So if you'd like to support us financially, you can do that over at patreon.com/Dissect That Film. But if you can't do that, that's perfectly fine. I want you to go to your favorite podcast app of choice and leave us 5 stars, because that's cool. It makes us feel good, and it helps the show out. At least that's what I've been told. Movie Dumpsters told us one thing. I've had other podcasts say others, so I don't know. It's a good thing, I guess. Leave us a 5-star
absolutely help. Leave the reviews. If you can write one, it actually helps even more. But just the simple act of saying 5 stars, seriously, like, you'll pop up on Google higher up, and people will be able to find you quicker. It does actually help.
I'm gonna listen to Sean, because he wouldn't steer me wrong. Please leave that 5-star review. We appreciate you so much. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate you there. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. It's all free, guys. It doesn't cost you a thing. We do have memberships though over on YouTube, because we are technically YouTube partners. So if you want to support us on YouTube, you could do that too. You don't have to do it, but we appreciate you if you do. That's all my plugs. I'm horrible at the plug part. You guys have it down pat. I'm just like fucking vomiting everywhere.
Here's the secret. You get a piece of paper. This is the big spill in the tea here. You get a piece of paper and you write it down and you read it like 10 episodes in a row, and then you just kind of have it, and then you just you riff from there. That's the secret, guys.
Yeah.
Just read it off a note for a few weeks and you'll memorize it.
I think it's more fun now that I'm like 170 episodes into this thing, where I'm just like, you know what? We've never gotten it right the whole time. We always forget something. Like, why start being good at this now?
I mean, there's some charm to that too. I get where you're coming from, though, is my point.
Speaking of forgetting stuff, because I'm going to do this real fast because it's for our show. This month's one, because this would be for August.
Oh, right? For the Monster Zone, yes.
Yes, for Monster Zone is the Horror at Party Beach. So if you like hot dogs in your face, that's the one to watch.
Okay, I like hot dogs in my face. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah. So that's it for this episode. That's it for our second week of Mummy Month. We'll see you next week for The Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor with Darren Lundberg. But until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming, and that is Sean O'Rourke from Movie Dumpster. And this has been another episode of the Dissect That Film podcast. We'll see y'all again next time. Bye.
Bye.